us against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all this day and forevermore. Amen.
We are live here at after having led the country to political independence from Great Britain. Mr. John had been a member of Parliament for a number of years. As a matter of fact, he came into Parliament in 1970. And as you can see now, Desiree John, the wife of the late Patrick John, is viewing the body for a final time. Yesterday, we had public viewing at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium, but now we have official viewing at the State House Conference Center on Victoria Street in Roseau. Mrs. John is now looking at the body of her late husband. I see the children, a number of the children of Patrick John. They are here with us and they are seated. Official viewing is taking place at the State House Conference Center, and a state funeral is to follow this afternoon at the St. Gerard's Cathedral Chapel, followed by burial at the Anglican Church grounds. The family will view the body first, and then we will have the official mourners. Area where the body is placed. His Excellency, of course, led by his aide-de-camp, and Mrs. Savre will now pay their final respects to the late Patrick Roland John, Dominica's first Prime Minister, who died on July 6 at the age of 84. His Excellency the President now paying his final respect to the late Patrick Roland John and Mrs. Savre, and they will make their way out of the area at this time and back to his office. So His Excellency the President has viewed the body and he will make his way out of the area at this time. Arrival of the Prime Minister of Dominica, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit. Prime Minister Skerrit will to the casket. The casket is placed head north, leg south, in the middle of the State House Conference Center there now. The Prime Minister is accompanied by the Deputy Chief of Police, or escorted by the Deputy Chief of Police, and he has paid his final respect. He will now speak with the family. To include, I see the wife of the late Patrick John, the son, or the sons, Patrick Jr., Nairi, has already paid his respect, and he will make his way out of the facilities here at the State House today. So Prime Minister Skerrit will leave the compound at this time, and viewing of the body, it's a very brisk event.
Check, check.
The Honorable Prime Minister, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, the resident judges, the members of Cabinet and the Secretary to the Cabinet, then the Leader of the Opposition, former Prime Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps, the Mayor of Roseau, members of the House of Assembly, the Chairman of Constitutional Commissions, the Chief of Police, and the Permanent Secretaries and Heads of Department, the Kalinago Chief, and viewing is expected to end at 12 noon. There is a 5 to 10-minute interval between official viewers, and of course everything is being done in keeping with the COVID-19 protocols. And of course the state funeral for the late Patrick John, the former Prime Minister of Dominica, will be held on Wednesday, September 29, 2021. The state funeral is in keeping with a cabinet decision of July 31, 2001, which accords a state funeral to all former prime ministers or heads of government. Patrick Roland John served as Dominica's first prime minister from November 3, 1978 to June 21, 1979. He led Dominica to political independence from Great Britain. Prior to independence, Mr. John served as Premier of Dominica from 1974 to 1978, and he previously held key government positions including Deputy Premier, Minister for Finance, Minister for Communications and Works, Minister for Home Affairs, among others. He was the Member of Parliament for the Roseau North Electoral District, which later became the Roseau North Constituency, from November 1, 1970 to April 27, 1980. He was also parliamentary representative for the St. Joseph constituency, serving from July 1, 1985 to February 20, 1986. The late Patrick Roland John was born on January to view the body of the late. The arrival of the daughter of Patrick John, that is Paula Jacques, and her husband and family as well. Justice Stevenson is now greeting the family of the late Patrick John. Justice Stevenson is greeting the family of the late Patrick John, and she is among. Justice Stevenson is now meeting the family of Mr. John, including the children, wife, children, and grandchildren. And
Well, good morning to the listeners of DBS Radio and the persons who are actually viewing live audio of live video of DBS Radio at this time. We are actually at the State House to bring you the live proceedings of the Patrick John, laid in state now, first Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. We actually witnessing the family of Mr. Patrick John. We have seen from our far left the Prime Minister's wife, Ms. Desiree John. Right now, we're seeing that the acting prison superintendent, Mr. Jacques, passing and to have a view of Mr. Patrick John. Mr. Jacques is also married to the daughter, the last daughter of his first wife, Paula John, Jacques, and looking on along with his daughter. So it means that Mr. Jacques and the granddaughter of Patrick John just had a view and have just left.
Exactement, du spécial bonjour pour tout le monde qui a écouté Radio DBS à présent. Ça c'est en l'autre jour, enfin, quand pays à présent, qui Patrick John, premier Dominique, qui a tiré aujourd'hui, mais premier qu'on nous l'a, qui président, cadavre. Patrick John qui a exposé en l'état à la capacité officielle bon matin et nous avons différents officiers de gouvernement qui ont une opportunité pour dire qu'on a dit d'aider pour dernière fois qu'on nous l'a en chambre conférence qui est président à la cadavre l'a exposé enfin nous avons même famille Patrick John Cizé comment des différents officiers gouvernement qui là premièrement nous avons président M. Charles Savin a venu d'aider pas trop long qui passait pour le ministère Minister Skerrit aussi j'ai venu d'aider avec comment dire
right now we're seeing the Speaker of the House, Mr. Joseph Isaac. Himself, his father was a very close friend of Patrick John. They played football together for the same team in the early 60s. Also to Mr. Isaac, as who was former parliamentary representative of Rosa Central, where Patrick John himself actually was born in Rosa Central in Lagon, and Mr. Isaac has just left.
Yes, ça va. Encore, ça c'est on joue, mais comme on dit, ça c'est en capacité officielle. Nous avons différents monde, différentes organisations, différents officiers gouvernement qui est là. Pas très long qui passe, nous voyons monde là qui est en charge du département prison, Dominique Jean-Jacques, enfin, était là, pas trop long qui passait. Avec comme nous avons différents membres gouvernement, officier gouvernement qui est là aussi. Concernant l'autre jour, quand cadavre Patrick John exposé en l'état à la capacité officielle, jeudi, il y avait sur différentes qualités ambiance, ce qu'on hier, la cadavre a été exposé en Windsor Park. Jeudi, c'est ambiance là différente. Vous savez, c'est un qui a vraiment dit, valait sérieux situation sérieux enfin pour qui a vraiment mené réalité situation qui a dit bon cadavre là est exposé et pas trop long après ça qui a tiré à Mr. Patrick John.
And also too, we are seeing, as we said earlier on, the family of Patrick John from our far left, as we were saying earlier on, and that of Desiree John and her son Nairi John and daughter Aisha John, and we are seeing his first son, Renick John, alongside of his first son of his wife, Junior, along with Patricia John, Paula John, and the granddaughter of Patrick John, the granddaughter of Nairi, sorry, the daughter of Nairi, and also the granddaughter of Patrick John, that is Naomi John, and so you're hearing in the background some steel pan being played. We know that Patrick John, in his early part of his life, was very much involved in Carnival, not in a special way, came from Nagon. And steel pan has been played by Everton Martin. First panel has been played now at the lane of Patrick John.
Oui, encore nous là, je dis encore Cécile, nous n'y pour en fait situation hier Cécile m'a dit oui, nous avons été en pile d'informations qui disséminées hier à l'avenir pour Patrick John. Bon, on fait monter et puis on jeune homme bon matin, Cécile a été parlé avec jeune homme là dit moi vous savez les informations qui étaient disséminées hier, c'est comme si dit c'est à présent qui connaît qui mon Patrick John hier, enfin il comprend cette situation comme ça pour mon ça connaître plus compte en mon personnellement il dit moi vraiment il dit comment il dit moi il dit Mr. do all them things now I did not know Patrick John do all them things because of Mr. National Security and National Bank c'était powerly ça c'est information qui sortit hier malheureusement il était né pour prendre la mort Patrick John pour pile monde connaître vous savez ça il a fait contribution qui a fait un peu.
You might not be even aware that even Harry Spint, he was very much instrumental in March 1978. Prior to we becoming independent, he was still Premier of Dominica, making the necessary negotiation to ensure that Harry Spint would have been in Dominica. As I said yesterday, that Harry Spint actually was headquarters was in Barbados, and Patrick felt it was of great importance to have a branch of Harry Spint in Dominica, and so we saw Patrick John negotiating and ensuring that Harry Spint, and up to this present time, 43 years later, Harry Spint is still in Dominica. First manager Ninian married, and we saw Griffin Sentilla being manager, and then right now we have Rosalind Sorrendo, who is now manager of Harry Spint.
Oui, ça c'est bagay qui bien important puis pour savoir aussi que Patrick John était même un teacher avec moi apprendre qui il même travaille pour Church avant il était quitté pour aller où ça formé à syndicat mais ça nous qui est waouh comme ça plus en plus nous apprendre plus contre ça c'est un bon bagay mais en même temps il était bien si qu'on nous était cadé hier qui c'est bagay ça là qui ça documenté pour moun ça connaître plus contre moun là qui fait contribution à pays nous mais en même temps nous content puis on pense aussi ou mais aussi vous savez ça c'est mais les moun qu'on Patrick John où ça va exposer à l'état comme ça je dis et qu'il y a des moun aussi qui ou ça la plupart du temps il y a des gens qui répondent à négativité avec qui positivité à ce côté mais nous ça dit que Patrick John Tenny puis ça qui positif pour ça qui est négatif.
Housing, affordable housing
God has
to
given us the
less
opportunity
fortunate
to
or lower
serve in
income
whatever capacity
Dominicans.
that he feels that that's best for
Mr.
us.
John
And
was
Patrick John
regarded as a
himself,
man of the
contributed
people,
towards Dominican
and
development,
yesterday at the
in various
public
spheres.
viewing at
As
the
I said,
stadium,
he was very
a
much
gentleman
involved
came
in
forward with
trade
a
unionism,
T-shirt
as you heard in
which
your
was some
program yesterday.
42
Patrick
years
was very much
old,
instrumental
which depicted
in
Mr.
bringing
John's
credit
time
status,
as running
in
for
trade union,
representational
worked with him
politics.
and
His
made him what he
T-shirt
was,
is
in
election
terms of
memorabilia.
a union leader, that is,
42-year-old
the man
T-shirt
Prince
of when
Augustus.
Mr.
And
John
how come that they died in
contested
2 days in
elections
difference?
in
Patrick
the
died on Monday, I think,
1980s.
and Curtis
So,
died on Friday.
I think we now see
of
the
the same,
arrival of
that,
the Deputy Prime
for me,
Minister. I
of
think
great
I've seen his
importance in
vehicle
terms of
make
our
its
history
way
in Dominica.
onto
Mais
the State
là, on ne
House
pouvait
grounds, the
m'écouter,
arrival of
regarder
the
liste,
Deputy
ouais,
Prime Minister. And I
ça c'est
think I also
peut-être
see
encore ok, ça
the
n'y a pas
Minister
pour
for
toucher à sur
National
ça.
Security
Et quand
and
Patrick John
Home
exposé
Affairs
ici, il y avait
who
premier
have
monde qui
arrived
en
here.
capacité officielle qui était ça, ouais, c'était
So,
président pays. Nous connaissons
very
l'histoire
solemn
avec président,
occasion here,
ça c'est
but,
plus ça au niveau du pouvoir.
the
Well,
occasion
you see,
is
as we
made
go along with life,
easier with
there are
some
things that
steel pan music
come
there.
along.
Of course,
And by
Mr. John
virtue
was
of
known as a
history,
lover of
you
carnival
know that,
activities.
Patrick
He
John
participated
and Charles
in
Savoy,
calypso
who's
events,
now
even
president
serving
of
as a
Dominica,
master of ceremony
did not
for
get
calypso
over
events,
head,
as
and
well
during the time
as
he was
a
Premier of
writer
Dominica and the
of
Prime Minister.
calypsos in Dominica.
Patrick John
We
himself
now
came
see
from
the
the
arrival
Tribunalism,
of the deputy
and also
the
that
senior
of,
minister, sorry, the
Charles
senior
Savoy,
minister,
who
former
was the
deputy
General
prime
Secretary
minister,
of
the senior
CSE,
minister,
Civil Service Association.
Minister
And
Reginald
Charles Savoy,
Austri. He has
as
arrived
the
here
secretary, did what he had
on
to do,
location
because remember, he
at the State
represented
House
people.
Conference Center, and
And
very
many
soon
times
he'll make his way
people think that when you
into the
represent
conference room
people, the things
to
that
pay
you
his
do
final
just about
respects
your own.
to the late
I'm sure that
Patrick
you're an executive
Roland
that
John.
can
Patrick
also help
Roland
you
John
directly
was the leader
help
of
you
the
part
Dominica
the
Labour
union.
Party,
And
and
so,
we now see
even during the time of
arrival as he's making his
Libya,
way to the conference room, Honorable
Savoy himself
Reginald
was very much,
Austri, the
involved
senior
in the
minister
development of
and Minister for
we have such a
Housing
many people
and
that Charles
Urban
Savoy,
Renewal.
fighting for the ordinary working class people in those days.
Minister.
We must come to understand the work that he has done. Remember the 100 and 20% increase in salary that he was asking for the public officers. At the time, Dominica public officers were one of the lowest paid in the region. And so today, many persons who are enjoying higher salaries or enjoying the salaries that they have from the baseline is that of the work of Charles Savoy.
C'est pour ça que je me objection hier, c'est où ça qu'on jeune homme qui est levé.
But before we continue, sorry, we are saying now the senior minister in state, the Honorable Reginald Austri, the parliamentary representative for the Cottage Constituency, is now paying his last respect to Patrick. But before he's doing this, he's actually having a conversation with Desiree John.
Alright, d'accord, ça, quand nous là, ça c'est ministre, enfin, pour affaires Kai Adomnik, monsieur Reginald Austri, même parlement pour lui, cortège, ils vont tout là, enfin, encore pour lui, même d'idée, mais pour moi, avant que ça, ouais, car là, il prend opportunité pour peut-être consoler la famille, pour moi, quand nous parler, puis madame Patrick John, madame, ça c'est Desiree John, enfin, il y a une petite conversation qui aller là. Ça, c'est qui est important en situation ça là pour les gens qui peut-être apprendre des bagages à Patrick John qui même qui bénéficier de travail Patrick John pour eux là je dis à venir mener en certain voilà consolation ba famille qui en tristesse là je dis.
Yeah, well, he's actually the Minister of Housing, and Reginald Austri is actually paying his respects to every one of the members of the family. And as we are saying, so we are seeing the son of the former, I should say, deceased now, Michael Douglas, the son of Michael Douglas, the nephew of Rosie Douglas, the man Ian Douglas.
Senior Minister, Honorable Reginald Austri, will now pay his final respects as we see the arrival of Honorable Ian Douglas, the Minister for Trade and the Parliamentary Representative for the Portsmouth Constituency. His own father, the late Mike Douglas, would have
today you're seeing that that the man Ian Douglas, who is Parliamentary Representative is showing giving his last respects to
We also
to,
see the
to the
arrival
family.
of Honorable
Ewe,
David
le aussi au
Blackmore,
niveau
the
gade
Minister
moun kon
for
Ian
Home
Douglas qui c'est
Affairs, National
ministre pour
Security
affaires
and Home Affairs.
commerce en tout cas qui est trade Dominique avec développement export. Là où regardez position M. Douglas avait ça même Patrick John a fait à la vini pour exportation avait même commerce en pays ça a fait un peu ça c'est qui enfin pas il a seulement en famille Douglas mais en même temps alors monde qui était à prendre pile aussi hot Patrick John
And so too is Ian Douglas, a very astute politician, very articulate, like that of his father and his uncle.
Ironically,
Now the
the
parliamentary representative for the Mao constituency, Mr. Reverend Blackmore, who is also Minister of National Security. Now, we know that the close confidant of Patrick John in the early days of the 70s, after 1975 election, was Vic Riviere from the Mao constituency. And now we're seeing that Mr. Blackmore is now making his way to pay his last respect to the first Prime Minister of Dominica, Patrick Roland.
right of course mon parlement pour niveau Maho monsieur Reverend Blackmore avait ce qui est responsabilité pour sécurité en pays aussi montrer avait manière qui bagaille organiser la c'est comme pour une opportunité pour parler avec peut-être pour cela c'est ma famille et après pour que ça ouais carabla ça c'est manière qui organiser ces familles même famille qui la jodi a aussi en face à Casket là c'est là qui a une opportunité pour avantage pas seulement consoler famille mais une opportunité pour carabla comme ça même quand hier il était bien organisé mais jodi il y a une manière qui plus officielle
I remember
Vini, ouais, papa, yo potenye fola. Et puis, officier gouvernement qui ja, ouais, vini paye respect you. C'est Président Dominic, His Excellency Charles Savre, et puis Mrs. Savre, Premier Ministre, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Speaker, Kai Parlemala, Honorable Joseph Isaac, Resident Abukala, Justice Adrian Roberts, Mam Parliament, pour Constituency Cottage,
mais ça
Honorable
c'est mon fait qui dernière fois nous tenir on lettement officiel comme ça enfin bon on va essayer échanger mais peut-être Cécile c'est historien qui nous est là et puis nous bon matin qui peut-être ça nous information ça là ça c'est qui dernière fois nous tenir lettement officiel
I'm trying to just recall. I know that we had
et puis Monsieur John était Premier Ministre Dominique,
we had one of Liverpool,
Dominique a dépadant,
President of Dominica.
il aussi fait service comme ministre
President
éducation,
of Dominica,
ministre finance, ministre agriculture et puis développement communauté. Il aussi fait un lot de travail à sa fait Baffin State, Kinfield, Point Michel et puis Trafalgar.
il y a une différence enfin il y a une state funeral une qui dit plus official parce que il est tellement official funeral et state funeral qui différence
in reference to the state funeral, all of this ambience that you're seeing,
nouvel gouvernement qui mène au tout
in reference to coming to the
bagaille qui a fait à State House Conference là et puis nous aussi qui couvert les thèmes là en Cathedral Chapel là et puis aussi non nous avons
I'm trying to remember the name that it's been called, but the gunshots have been made. I'm trying to remember the name of it. If someone can help me with it, you know. But there's a few differences between the state funeral and that of an official funeral. I know that Luke Corriott himself got an official funeral. He was Minister of Government in the Patrick John regime about 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years. And so today we are saying that Patrick John has been given a state funeral.
State funeral. Because I'm pense peut-être il dépend à ce position yo avait peut-être à ce qui est à one service à sens en situation était primaire avait aussi était aussi premier ministre que ça fait ça aussi là ça fait on lettement à ce état ça là mais si au cas jeune nous enfin nous là Chambre conférence président comme on l'autre ça c'est exposition cadavre de fait Patrick John avant qui était plus tard après-midi enfin il y a plus de monde qui était dit c'est moi en commencement mois juillet mais nous au mois septembre mais encore à cause de la situation avec famille même madame les plus on parle de relation qui était avec deuxième madame les sociétés en relation qui était bien fort il était dépendant sur l'autre après mon frère madame les télé alors plus meilleure en position de télévision en plus bonne santé tout ça pour ça ouais pour ça ni force là pour ça dire oui d'aider un monde qui était capable confort pour
Right
ce
now, we
moment
see the arrival of the Minister for Agriculture,
in reference to where we are
Honorable
today,
Fidel Grant,
we
and the
remember,
Senator,
many of us,
Honorable
would,
Caressa.
but many of us, my age and
Gregory
older,
Riviere.
remember that this particular building was actually the home of the governor. It was the governor's house for many years. Or used to say the residence of the governor. And we know that also that this place was the colonial governor's house too. And we remember very clearly that when Sylvie Kozlati was governor of Dominica, that he became governor, I think, in 1955, if memory serves me right. Actually, sitting in for the Queen as governor.
Oui, comme vous regardez, vous en imaginez tous ces développements qui j'ai en place à Dominique en cette année qui passée, même avant nous trouver l'indépendance. Mais moi, je crois aussi qu'il y a habilité nous pour taper l'indépendance, ça fait une opportunité pour faire cet changement. Un changement, nous avons à présent qui est en réalité, même un cas président qui nous l'a choisi. C'est pas comme ça a été avant, moi, quoi. 15 ans, 20 ans qui passent, c'est pas comme ça a été hier. On peut le changement.
Yes.
On a changé les costes du place. Finally, we have a state house.
Yes. And just want to say that right now we are seeing the parliamentary representative for the West Constituency, also Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Fidel Grant, is actually paying his respects to the family.
All right, that's because nous avons parlement pour les Wesley avec ministre qui a responsabilité pour les affaires agricoles à Mr. Fidel Grant. D'après moi, il y a les mots de écouter en parole à Mr. Patrick John avec des par les cocoy.
Oh yes, Patrick John is very much strong in culture. He to continue the legacy of the man E.O. Libla. Right now, we are seeing the Mr. Senator Riviere. Senator Gregory Riviere. Normally we call him Caressa, so that was what's stuck in my mind to say. But it is actually Senator Riviere paying his last respect to the family. From Marigot, Senator Riviere is from Marigot. And also too we're seeing following behind that of Mr. Riviere, the also Senator. Mr. Cassani Laville, Minister responsible for communication and works.
Ben ouais, quand nous dit ça, c'est un moment officiel, concernant que ouais, différents monde en gouvernement, différents ministères. On peut espérer aussi que nous que ouais, monde en opposition, tout ça, c'est.
Yes, there will be the opposition parliamentarians will also make themselves available. But as I was saying in reference to Sir Lucas Latig, yes. In November 1967 to 4th of November 1978, he was governor of Dominica, placing as the representative for the Queen of England. And we will all remember that in March of 1967, Dominica became an associated statehood.
Alright, comme ça, nous avons parlé quand temps vraiment avant nous devenu président qui monsieur c'est gouverneur Kozlatig enfin en année 1967 qui la Dominique pas indépendant mais c'est comme si il était pour pousser pour ça debout pas quoi.
Actually, we were responsible for our finances and the British would have been responsible for our defense. We are now seeing the parliamentary representative for St. Joseph, Patrick John himself represented St. Joseph in 1985. And so the present parliamentary representative of St. Joseph is bearing last respect to the family of Dr. Alex King.
Dr. Alex King. All right. Là, regardez la situation en Cécile, même quand nous avons indépendance de l'Angleterre, mais avant ça, nous avons un ministre qui a une responsabilité pour les affaires éducation, Madame Octavia Alfred, aussi, qui a venu jouer par exposition salam, je pense qu'il y a une opportunité aussi pour parler et puis famille avant et que ça ouais carave là mais là où regarde situation pays qui lutte pour taper indépendance hard l'Angleterre mais quand on n'est pas de maman même si les enfants qui est toujours là pour assister si jamais nécessaire.
Yes. And so as I said earlier on that Latte was the first Dominican to become governor until our independence, and as I also made mention that in 1955 so Latte was the chief secretary of the Windward Islands, and on the 9th of May 1955 was given to be the governor, deputy governor in 1955. So in 1955 he was given deputy governor until he became governor in 1967.
Vraiment, aspect gouverner, c'est quelque chose qui était sorti hors du système, nous. Mais avant ça, nous avons un ministre qui a une responsabilité pour les affaires télécommunications, M. Oscar George. Ou ça dit, c'est ministère aussi, nous, à Radio DBS, ça va être télécommunications aussi, qui a venu, qui a salué sa famille. Qui a une opportunité aussi pour Carave.
Patrick John. Yes, Oscar George, our minister responsible for telecommunication, Senator Oscar George, also from the community of Penville. And as we know that Libya himself came from Vickers, who would have represented Penville. So it tells you of the relationship between Labour and that community of Penville. Right now we're seeing parliamentary representative for the Preevo Constituency, the Honorable Roland Paul.
Right. Minister qui a responsabilité pour sport et culture Dominique, Madame Roland Paul, qui a entré Kassambanga qui voulait bien doucement là à présent. Madame Paul, présent qui a une opportunité pour Carava, Mr. Patrick John, et à présent le ministre qui a une responsabilité pour les affaires étrangères. Dr. Kenneth Darrow qui dernièrement a fait présentation à l'Assemblée générale des Nations Unies, UN General Assembly, à lundi, que ça, nous avons là, on a parlé, et puis Madame John, Desiree John, et bien, nous avons une opportunité peut-être pour saluer la West famille avant qu'il soit cadavre.
Well, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Kenneth Darrow is here. He's speaking with the wife of the deceased, Patrick John. Having it seems a very long conversation. In the early days,
he's a
Patrick
doctor.
Doctor.
So he could be asking her, "How are you?" and "How's the leg?" and all of that.
And you're so right, you know. And we remember in the days of '75 that when Patrick John ran for election, Luke Corriott in 1975 was the parliamentary representative for the constituency of which presently parliamentary representative Darrow is actually serving. And he's now looking on to the coffin of that of Patrick John.
Mais au cas où tu es plus bonne quand monsieur Kozla qui était premier gouverneur Dominique pour enfin pour proposition ça là pour mes dominicains pour proposition qu'on gouverneur Dominique mais là regarde la situation et puis nous à présent après indépendance ça fait gouverneur ça là ça pas en position qui nous réaliser.
We no longer have a governor like many other countries of the region do have a governor general.
Cayman,
yes, like Barbados,
Bermuda,
St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Antigua. These countries have a governor general. Dominica has a president. So Dominica, Guyana, and Trinidad, the three countries of the region. The ones with presidents. Right now I'm understanding that Barbados is now talking about having a president. Trinidad once had a governor general for many years, and I just think about 2-3 years ago they moved from governor general to a president. And so Dominica was the second country of the region after Guyana having a president rather than that of a governor general. Now we're seeing the parliamentary representative for the Kalinago, the Honorable Cozier Frederick, coming in and meeting the wife of the deceased, Patrick Roland John, first Prime Minister of Dominica.
All right, Minister, qui est responsabilité pour les affaires Kalinago, fait un parlement pour les à Libya, Monsieur Kozia Frederick, qui a fait parler puis Madame John, et tout c'est un monde qui a une grande passion pour histoire, histoire nous Dominique, histoire Kalinago. Parce que mon cap c'est qu'il était que ça dit non pile, ou ça même quand ça nous parler la aujourd'hui, c'est à ce temps là.
Yes, Patrick himself worked very closely with the Kalinago people, especially with Daru, I think, who was then the person who won the election in 1975 for the Dominican Labour Party. And so the Kalinago themselves have an affinity to the Labour Party. We have seen from 2000 to this present time that the Kalinago has been represented by a representative of the Dominican Labour Party.
All right, comme Mr. Frederick, qui a l'opportunité pour DDD. Quand il a fait ça, nous avons Madame Shakira Lokat.
Shakira Lokat herself, representing the Roseau South Constituency, a constituency that was also represented by let me see, we had Freedom Party and the Labour Party, yes, by the two major parties of Dominica. So we had, in the time of Patrick John, Eustace Francis was the parliamentary representative at that time. And we then saw the Freedom Party with Mr. Walsh, Ozzy Walsh. And so today we're seeing, and also the Freedom and the United Workers Party, Francis, that is Mr. Joshua Francis himself. So all three major parties have had an opportunity to represent people in the Roseau North constituency right now. In the Roseau South constituency right now, we are seeing the parliamentary representative from La Plaine, Mr. Ken George.
Kent Edwards.
Ken Edwards.
Ken George, okay.
Ken Edwards, you know, and now making his way to visit the casket of...
Yes, avec quand il a fait ça, nous avons ministre pour les affaires santé, Dr. Irving McIntyre, alors qui m'a pensé peut-être bien chaud, vous savez, les affaires Covid, mais enfin en situation ça là quand il y a un coup de bois, enfin il sorti un coup de bois.
And I'm sure that Patrick John have had a close affinity to the father of Dr. Irving McIntyre. Parliamentary representative of the Trafalgar constituency, because his father himself was someone who was very much involved in agriculture, and Patrick John, then at the time Minister of Agriculture, would have worked alongside with that of the father of Irving McIntyre.
Vous imaginez quand docteur qui ça même quand le puis moi c'est un monde ça c'est le mot qu'a regardé cadavre moi bien examiner cadavre ça c'est que je monte les étudier pour étudier cadavre monde qui mort mais pour imaginer opportunité pour faire ça pour ça nous imaginer que ça docteur a catché les côtes mais ça c'est avocat
right now the acting AG, the Attorney General, Mr. Lennox Lawrence, as he comes in and meeting the family of Mr. John.
All right. Parce que nous avocat général, mon qui en position qu'avocat général, Mr. Lennox Lawrence, je pas aussi quand il est venu dit mais ça c'est le mot regarder un bagage là, regarder enfin au cas où avocat général nous sorti avec Kent Edwards pas avant ça nous effectuera et une monde ça là. Oh, Cecile.
This one is a hard one for me and you. You know, we both worked with him very closely. I worked with him from the level of youth and also at DBS Radio. And he's no longer with us. It's a sad one for many of us. Those of us who were very close to him, those of us who knew him well, it's really sad moments. I'm not so sure whether or not that day I'll be even able to come to the funeral.
Well, I was saying this even to Ivona yesterday. I was like, yeah, I'm saying, you think I'll be able to have the strength, to even do the broadcast? But God is good.
Well,
God is good.
I want to ask Ivona, my program director, that I should not do the broadcast.
Well, I tried to get myself off yesterday.
Because it's going to be a difficult one, a very difficult one. A man that I worked with, a man that I I had high regards for in terms of the work that he did.
By the way, just to
for
let the
young
listeners
people.
know, we're referring to Edward Regis, the late. We're
You
not
know.
speaking out of the in air, but we,
Yes.
because we were just looking at some photos.
And if you realize I didn't want to even call the name.
Well, I have to call his name, I will call his name.
Because,
And
it's a deep one for
unfortunately,
me.
we will have to do just the same thing for the late Mr. Regis.
And as we're saying this, we need to maybe even identify presidents of Dominica.
Yes.
The names when they took office and when they left office, and how long that they would have served. So we know that Sir Louis Latig, who actually took office on the 3rd of November.
Après été de position gouverneur général.
After he was governor.
Oui, après gouverneur, pas gouverneur général,
Yes,
mais
governor.
gouverneur.
Okay. Because when you become independent, you can get a governor general.
Oh.
All right. When
Okay, parce que la différence gouverneur avec gouverneur général.
Governor.
Okay.
When you're not independent, all
Right.
right, representing the Queen.
Okay.
And you have because the Queen is the head of the Commonwealth.
En situation.
Yes, when you become independent,
pays comme Antigua, gouverneur général.
St. Lucia,
Okay.
St. Vincent,
Okay.
Jamaica. These countries have governor generals.
Okay.
As I said,
Okay.
as I said earlier on, there are only 3 countries of the region with presidents, and the English-speaking countries with presidents.
Sa gouverneur c'est avant indépendance, et le gouverneur général c'est après indépendance.
So you had Sir Louis Latig, who took office on the 4th of November as president, and left on the 16th of January 1979. That is to say that he had some 74 days in office. And you had Fred de Gazo himself, who took office on the 16th of January from that of Louis Latig, 16th of January to the 29th of January 1980. So he made 1 year and 14 days. And when he left, we know that he left untimely, based on political crisis that was in Dominica. Sir Louis Latig came back and served for just 1 day, on the 15th of June 1979 to the 16th of June 1979.
Mais avant de continuer, Cécile, je venais pour réaliser quelque chose. Même avec Latig, qui prend l'office les 3 en mois novembre, c'est le jour d'indépendance. C'est aussi même jour que Patrick John prend l'office comme Premier ministre.
As Prime Minister.
Comme Premier ministre. Mais en ce temps, là, tu prend opposition, on a pensé officiellement les jours qui peut-être la constitution a un effet. Par exemple, nous Dominique, c'est pas jour élection qui ou prend position, nous comme un jour pour aller après ça, mais nous en ce temps là c'était même jour.
Même jour.
Same day.
Yeah.
Same day.
No, as a matter of fact, when there is election, to have a prime minister, you have to be sworn in by the president almost immediately. So overnight, you would hear victory of a particular political party that would be led by someone, and the next day they do their utmost best for the next day in the Westminster system to ensure that that is done. The federal system is totally different, like that of the United States. You see that when election comes in November, the new president comes in in January. So you would hear from the media, president-elect, and when he is sworn in, he becomes the president. Unlike us in the Westminster system, especially in the small islands of the Caribbean, almost immediately that you have the next prime minister will be sworn into office. So yes, we were talking about. Then we had Jenna Amo, who came in after that of Sir Louis Latig, and I remembered in discussions with the general public to inform them that Jenna Amo became the president of Dominica on the 21st of June 1979, and on that same said day, that's when Patrick John himself as Premier lost as Prime Minister the office of Prime Minister, because 12 members of his government went in and requested of Jenna Amo to vacate the position. And we'll also remember too that even Patrick John, Demi Junior Charles, and the Bishop at the time, Bogard, before the 21st of June, had to come together to determine after the 29th of May, had to determine who they wanted to act as president, and the three of them came to conclusion that they would have requested of General Amo to serve in as prime minister, as president interim.
Mais Kouzlatik vini viwe en proposition comme président en un jour. Pucci.
Well, first of all, he was elected by Parliament to become, because Parliament has to really confer your appointment, and so on the 15th he became, and there was this continuous revolution, as I would say, or crisis in Dominica at that time, and so it was an unpleasant proceedings of Mr. Kouzlatik when he came in for that one day and felt that his life was not deserving of the treatment given, and so he chose to resign. And then General Amo, can you imagine, the country had no president for a period of almost 6 days. You know, I do not know constitutionally how correct that would have been, whether the country wasn't a country without a president, because as the Constitution says that we must have a president.
É important pour faire mon savent tout para nous ni dia ça c'est président avait premier ministre il est important pour faire mon savent qui ça mon là qui vraiment en charge du pays c'est président avait ministre premier ministre là c'est mon là qui can manager
You have a head of state. The head of state is the president.
President, exactly.
And you have a leader of government, and the leader of the government is the prime minister.
Exactly.
All right. The president is almost like a ceremonial figurehead who signs and but does not have a government like that you would see in Guyana. We know that in Haiti they also have. French was Haiti, as I said earlier, on English. Haiti has a president, and they also have a prime minister. But in Haiti, you can almost see that the prime minister is almost like that of a president here, which is just a figurehead. The president with his government and the powers in Haiti. So you find we would have a president who would be almost ceremonial, having to sign things on the dots and to ensure that things are done properly. And you have government where the leader has his cabinet and who would go to parliament, and while in parliament would pass laws to ensure that the country continues. And the head of state, when those bills are passed, become act or becomes law, that the president has to put his seal.
Parce que tout en tout, il y a cette décision, oui, comme premier ministre là qui est en charge, qui manager les affaires pays, mais il y a cette décision qui passe à pont à Sukhoi, il y a cette bagaille qui est obligé d'aller au type président.
We can almost say that things that are constitutional must be signed by the president. It's important.
Nous les gens savent qui par moi avec ça c'est là qu'a parler, c'est pas plus nous ne parler, mais c'est plus pour les personnes pour qu'on rentrer, mais si vous jeune nous là qu'a amener aux activités qu'on est en place qu'on des faits Patrick John exposé en l'état qu'on nous là en chambre conférence en cas président là qu'a exposé Patrick John avait là une famille Patrick John madame Patrick John garçon et puis un garçon et même fille ça c'est pour madame Patrick John.
That is Patrick John's which you're talking about, is it his first wife?
First wife.
No. His first wife has passed.
Oh, has passed.
Yes,
okay.
His first wife has passed.
Oh,
but
so
Desiree,
yeah.
So Desiree is his second wife.
Yes. Oh.
And as I said, Junior is his second son, but his first son is his wife. Renick is his first son. All right. His first child. His first child, Renick, and then. You have Junior, then you have Patricia, then you have Hefilia, who is not present here today, and you have Paula. Paula is right here today. And then you have Nairi and Aisha. Is it 7? Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And Hefilia is
yes, 7, yes.
Because I know.
From what I know.
Parce que là, c'est que grands enfants, il y avait aussi parler comme ça là, il y en a des grands enfants là qui bien pour.
Yes.
Mais enfin, c'est deux qui c'est il y en a au côté l'autre, c'est deux ça là mon savent c'est bien pour.
Yes.
Treasure c'est l'autre.
Yes. Well, Treasure would have been because she lived in the same house with him because that's the daughter of the son Nairi, and Naomi would be the first of his grandchildren, and so she looks a lot like him. She has the same build like him, you know, and very forefront.
Like
him, you know. It's amazing.
J'ai été premier gros enfant.
Yes, it's amazing.
Moi, premier gros enfant, au pile capon, c'est un caractère.
Yes.
Grand-parent yo.
Yes.
Mais c'est une grande famille, il est important pour qui famille là toujours. Moi ça qui était senti bien content, bien plaisir pour ça qui Maui papa grand-papa là aujourd'hui exposé à situation ça là content pour ça qui il ça fait toute contribution qui fait à pays qui yo même quand un juge aujourd'hui.
It's important, you know, that we understand, you know, the works that Patrick John has contributed to Dominica. Right now, we're seeing the first member of the opposition who will be coming in, and that is the parliamentary representative for the Salisbury constituency,
yes.
Hector John.
Mais oui, ça qui fait un peu le sens. Puis je c'était en bas, oui, qui déclaration pour une dépendance, t'es scié, ça c'est là, l'école là, il y a présent, l'école PREMIR, bah oui, enfin, devant l'école là, c'est là qui a scié déclaration et dépendance.
That's in 1976, you know, he declared that Dominica was going to be independent in the constituency of Salisbury. At that time, Mr. Louis was the parliamentary representative, you know, of the Salisbury constituency. Also, I'm seeing Danny Lugue there, you know. I think it looks like Miss Joseph, Senator Joseph of the opposition, is actually coming in and speaking to Desiree.
C'est very important en fait qu'on nous a dit pour savoir ce qu'a fait la cap en place tout à présent à donner mam en fait nous pour garder si nous avons toute mam à ce côté gouvernement ça c'est les cas qui la plupart de yo fait tout dio j'ai passé ça nous a mon à ce côté opposition là ça va sénateur Joseph qui a parlé de la famille ça va et puis parole constellation c'est ça qui est nécessaire dans temps comme ça qu'on nous dit nous déjà même parlement pour lui bah oui mais il peut comment tu me quoi à ce sens là il est dit ladies first parce que il va avoir l'opportunité pour ça
and from where we're sitting we can see the parliamentary representative for the Rolle North constituency but now we're seeing parliamentary representative for the Salisbury constituency. Hector John is now making his way just waiting for the ushers to bring him in. They've just done that, and he's now meeting with Desiree. Speaking of Desiree, you know.
Il y avait un cravate madras.
Yes, I just want to say that. You know, I observed that remember we are celebrating independence around this time.
Avec tout à présent, ça au mois de septembre.
So they need to maybe bring in his madras to represent the culture.
Avec on dit Mr. John aussi c'est un homme culti. Avec on nous a parlé de une bonne petite musique style pan que j'ai pas d'ailleurs, ça moi c'est Mr. Martin qui a joué musique style pan là comme ça tout bagay kan fait en pile sens là. La présent comme ça Danny Lugue qui a une opportunité pour ça.
Danny Lugue is now coming in. As we know, Danny Lugue is now presently the parliamentary representative. Patrick John represented that constituency. As I said, it was called Rosa Northern in the early days with Trafalgar and Loda as part of it from 1970, then 1975, the Goodwill constituency. And in this was the two periods that Patrick John actually represented the constituency of Rosa North. And Danny Lugue is now presently the parliamentary representative for Rosa North, speaking to the first son of the parliamentary representative, the first son of Patrick John, and also speaking to the daughter of Patrick and and also speaking also to the other daughter, that is Paula. And so we are seeing that he's making his way, almost about to make his way to the casket of Patrick Roland John.
Enfin, ou déjà mentionné quand secteur qui Danilo a représenté, avec M. John même, qui a représenté le secteur ça là. Enfin, hier, on a parlé aussi quand division qui a tenu en sens pour qu'il y ait plus secteur. Qui ça qui était vraiment raison pour décider, bon, 11 pas, c'est peut-être nous avons besoin de 21.
You see, Dominica is a very large country, huge country, I should say, very mountainous. And it was very difficult to have some 11 constituencies. And so for one parliamentary representative to make representation for such a large part of Dominica, even today, if you were to ask me, I think it's appropriate that central government should now look at even coming maybe to 25 constituencies. Because when you look like Roseau South, it's a very huge constituency. And I'm not talking about gerrymandering. I'm talking about, trying to see how we can expand to other constituencies. When you look at the constituency of even Portsmouth itself, into Dodan, and, when you look at the constituency of Maho is a very huge constituency. Some of us may not even really realize how huge Maho can be. And so it gives quite a lot of work to the parliamentary representative. It's not an easy feat to really be a representative of people and sometimes having to be a minister of government. It's something that is very taxing. And if you were to ask me in terms of the expansion of those constituencies, I would go to extend it, maybe 23, maybe not 25, but maybe 23, two other constituencies.
Mais on dit que enfin raison pour ça c'était pays à quoi nous savons Dominique en Condé même c'est un grand pays là on peut regarder Valais à Dominique ni mais si on est pour regarder aussi SSL ce secteur ça là mais yo grand en Condé même population petit quand même parce on mentionné en place qu'on gontance Maho mais là regarder en temps élection regarder Valais mon qui a voté en ce secteur ça là ou le qui a demandé quoi toutes ces places là ou là c'est mon là comme ça est-ce en parole ben est-ce en section des grandes places là mais c'est en section des valeurs monde qui
For me it's above just people. It's also dealing with infrastructure because you may have a constituency, for instance the Roseau South constituency, you might say there's about 5,000 or there about people representing, but when you look at, you have to represent Bath Estates, you have to represent Newtown, you have to represent Kingshill, Libya, Madrell. Those areas are also huge areas, and I am of the view that that can be cut in two. When you look at the Roseau North constituency, maybe another 5,000 or 6,000 people, you have to look at Fonkoli, Tarishpit, Gotha, Goodwill, Center Roma. It is Pottersville. It's a very huge constituency. And I'm saying in the early days, we had what was called Roseau Northern, you had Roseau Southern, you had Western, you had Northwestern, you had Southwestern, you had East, you had the Northeastern, you had the Southeastern, you had the Northern part, and you had Portsmouth, and you had the Southern. And that was the 11 constituencies in 1970. And then you see population was growing in those days, that you would have had about 25,000 people to really have to go out there to vote. And in 1970, 25,000 still looks like the 50,000+ persons that are now having had to be after 40, 50 years. So it's important that we recognize the challenges that the parliamentary representatives would have in reference to dealing with the issue of representation. And sometimes it's not that the parliamentary representative does not want to perform, but the constituency is so huge. For instance, St. Joseph. St. Joseph has all bells. And just imagine your bells is connected to St. Joseph. Layu Park. It's really a daunting task for many parliamentary representatives. And as I said, sometimes these parliamentary representatives do have offices in parliament, in governance. And so they have to be administrator and yet still representative of people. And that is why you find on a Thursday that they are given that opportunity to visit their constituencies.
Moi, quand changer, quand on parlait comme ça, qui pour le ministère, check temps qui passé, il fait un point. Bon, ouais, ça, enfin, moi, quand on parle comme ça depuis temps ça là, mais il t'a fait un point, puis, enfin, pour peut-être complémenter ça au cas dit, puis, pour garder secteur qui c'est mon pour représenter, à cause de quoi ces places là, c'est un challenge peut-être pour adresser ça qui concerne un pile monde qui ou même représenter peut-être pas que même tout le monde à cause des places là qu'on dit ou par exemple à Saint-Joe on pour aller Bells par exemple c'est nous pour monde. Mon quand je pour le ministère a fait un point qui peut-être il est nécessaire pour mettre en position un monde qui là pour assister à parlement m'a pas changer si ou pas changer ça mais il fait un point peut-être ça c'est peut-être il doit être que les considérer pour un monde pour un assistant parent pour pas comme ça un monde pour assister comme ça.
You see, but many times, knowing the human nature, yes, it is good to have an assistance to the parliamentary representative, but many times people tend to think, one, that this person will not give the parliamentary representative my concern the way that I would do it. That is one. Two, people like to feel that they are part of, and so they would rather just be straight up and personal with their parliamentary representative. So while it's a very, very perfect idea to really buffer the situation between the parliamentary representative and the constituents, I'm still of the view that we could extend like that of what Patrick John had a vision in 1975 to move from 11 and he moved it 10 more constituencies, you know what I'm saying? And we would have seen the value of this. We have seen some gerrymandering in the past where once upon a time that Bafa State was part of the Rosa North constituency. It has since then been removed and it's been placed in Rosa South. Now just imagine just imagine how huge is Rosa South. Just imagine just the community of Bafa State, its size. Just imagine Newtown. Just having imagined that as parliamentary representative to deal with Bafa State, Newtown and Kingston, for me, that is enough to be just a constituency. When you look at Suffrage, Scotts, Point Michel, Gagnon, I mean, for me, you could have Gagnon, Suffrage, Scotts as a constituency. And you could maybe put Madrell, those areas with Point Michel, So it gives the parliamentary representative a breathing space. It gives the parliamentary representative time that they could meet and connect people in the way that, because see, while you might be saying that the populations might be smaller, but people's commitment to the politicians is greater, and people request of the parliamentary representative is huger now. Unlike before, in your time of your mother, my mother, we were just happy to be part of the political party and go and vote. And today it's beyond just going and vote. People remind you that I voted for you and I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that. So it's totally different now when you look at what is actually going on in this present world.
Ben oui, elle parlait de ça dernièrement, on dit qui élection si Moussa quitté Dominique pour un petit moment, élection qui prend place qui Philippe Jepierre a gagné dernièrement en Saint-Lucie. Il n'y a pas la pose même en Saint-Lucie qui y a été les coupes dans ce secteur ça là puis ce secteur ça là tout grand puis même en Saint-Lucie n'est plus monde qui Dominique. On imagine il y a moins secteur qui.
As a matter of fact, there's one constituency two constituencies I see that should be looked at. Castries East, which presently Joachim Henry is the parliamentary representative, a very huge constituency with over 40,000 people. And you have also the constituency of Gozilie. Gozilie it's a huge constituency. I think maybe the first or the second huge constituency in St. Lucia. And yes, it is within his rights, I believe, having more than 2/3 majority to look into this thing and to see how best that they can really move it from 17 maybe to 21. Because at present in St. Lucia, we have 17 constituencies, and we as a smaller population, but bigger in size, have 21.
Mais là, regardez le système politique, nous avons mentionné qui valait gosser un secteur au compte manière qui c'est moun là qui ça bien représenter c'est moun là qui voter ba yo mais ce cas qui système politique nous Dominique même certains pays en région c'est plutôt un système politique qui personnel en sens là qui moun en politique quoi qui y a besoin d'une connexion et puis moun là parce que regarder place qu'on avec moi ça dit peut-être Joe Biden pas connaître moun qui en Arizona pas ce qu'on pense à regarder place là mais est-ce nous ka développer qualité culture ça là pour ni moun en position pour ni moun en gouvernement qui besoin qui croit qu'il est nécessaire pour ça ni en connexion et puis moun
Before we continue the conversation, we seeing the cabinet secretary, Miss Preevo, Karen Preevo is actually meeting with the wife of Patrick John and the rest of the members of the family as she goes and bear her last respects to the first Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. So you're saying no?
Non, mais regarde, ça c'est un culture qui nous développe pour nous ça ni mon politique, mon qui a gouverné nous en culture là nous besoin ni en connexion qui personnelle et puis mon là qui nous a représenter. Et ça c'est quelque chose qui est nécessaire.
We have to understand that our politics is a social science, and when you talk about social, you talk about people connecting with people. And many a times that you find that in our parts of the region, that connection really helps in building your popularity. Connection helps in building and making people know who you are. And the more connection that you can have, it's possible that you can make it through. And one of the things that I find though that is dynamic in Dominica that I've observed, in Dominica, outside of connection, it doesn't matter what position that you may hold in society. It's about how much connected that you are with people. And so a person might be a doctor. We have seen this in the past. A person might be a doctor. I saw that in Casket Constituency. And it was said that the particular parliamentary representative be two doctors. So in the Casket Constituency, a few years ago, that we saw two doctors actually ran, and a farmer actually won, and the farmer was Roland Banis, where he won over that of Dr. John Finn and Dr. Magdalene Daru, and that says Daru John. That says quite a lot in terms of the social science of politics, and so it's of great importance that in representing people in places like us, it's about creating and ensuring that connection remains. And that's why you have seen the present Prime Minister of Dominica has made it his business to really meet people, go to the various communities, and you'll hear people talk about his connection with the elderly, his connection with the people at schools, the connection with students. And so he sees the importance of the social science. And so a politician like Patrick John himself, who understood that political science, would have gone around the country to maintain that connectivity with the elderly, with the grassroots. And you would have heard at that time the Labour Party adopted the word called grassroots. So the Labour Party has always been a grassroots party. E.O. Libla himself, to come to Rosa to beat Baron, who was then a bureaucrat, I would say. Some persons in the early days said that he was very rich, as to what description that is, but he had a lot of assets. And so Libla, as an extension officer, coming from Viecas and having to challenge in at the time Colonial, that whole community, they Colonial, represented these people, and Libla went and contest election, even coming in the Newton area, because again of his connection of people. You would hear quite a number of people say that Roosevelt Skerrit can leave Vickers constituency and run almost in any constituency in Dominica and win. And that is because of the connection with people. And anyone who wants to be involved in party politics must first remember connection. If it's not about the prestige, it's not about being a minister, it's not about the position, but the highest position that you can get is if you care about people, if you love people, if you look out for people.
Ben oui, avec quand nous là vraiment à exposition cadavre à Patrick John on de qui mon qu'on de qui changer ou ça qui Patrick John t'es une vision enfin puis en ces temps ça là les montagnes quand ça va c'est bourgeois qui étaient là en pays avec ces gens qui étaient ni business c'est gens qui étaient vraiment dans le sens où ça des mener pays puis c'est qui étaient ni poche là au comprendre avec Patrick John c'était un monde qui était quoi qui était important pour ni en économie qui balancée ou ça pour monde ça à sous même état là parce on va on certain monde avec un certain monde pauvre c'est pour ça il était nécessaire ou ça pour assister monde qui était pauvre avec pour tirer cette bagaille hot système non moi je parler avec même chauffeur boss là bon matin il était qu'à mentionner parce que jeune non mon privé qui il était qu'à côté nous hier mon quoi il dit moyen pour nos pile il dit il qu'a montrer aussi mon Patrick John il était important pour eux même peut-être quitter pays ça pour voyager peut-être pour comment bagaille qui fait différent même pour taper monde pour assister yo qui fait il était sa vie Dominique fait cet changement puis il tapait assistance tout ça hot monde de même quand il était essayer pour tirer prof de hot société nous parler contre ces projets qui mettaient en place ou ça pour construire kaiba monde qui pas tenir kai ça c'est ouais puis on peut le monde encore là nous ka vivre une histoire en histoire au Catan en situation là pour Minister Skerrit qui a porté kaiba monde qui passe à ford mais ça c'est pas rien qui neuf en fait ça monsieur Joseph c'est quelque chose qui les parti même déjà commencé en cette année qui passe
you see every government in Dominica has looked at the issue of housing because housing has always been housing, health, unemployment has always been a top issue in the region, not just Dominica. And so when you look back, and you would look at what Barron himself did, because Barron himself as chief minister did his fair share as chief minister of Dominica. Olibla himself did quite a lot, and that's why we call him the grandfather of Dominica. Because he was the one who really ensured that roads have been built, schools, have been built, and ensure that even capital projects would have been done to ensure that the ordinary man, and that's why the Labour Party always had the symbol, either the shoe or the hat, because in those days the ordinary man wore the hat, and in those days the ordinary man wear no shoes. No shoes.
Mas moi t'es toujours les savent pour qui c'est symbole ça là qui était choisi pour qui soulier pas rien d'autre vous comprenez
because in the early days that the ordinary poor man wore no shoes and it was Patrick John's vision why he took when he joined the Labour Party, the Liberal Labour Party and the Dominican Labour Party, maintained the shoes of the Dominican Labour Party, maintained the name of the Dominican Labour Party, and so the shoe was the symbol because it was a sense of saying to the rest of Dominica, the rest of the world, the rest of the region, that we were going to put shoes in the feet of the ordinary man. And wearing a shoe wasn't just saying putting on a shoe, but to give them a better living. And so housing was being looked at. So yes, he did quite a lot in terms of housing, fair share in housing, 210 in Bafa State, I think maybe about 15 Point Michelle, another maybe 100 or so in Kenfield Flat, and a few other parts of Dominica, I think in Trafalgar also, and in Lower Murphy's Lane. That was Patrick John's vision to make the ordinary man wear a shoe. As I said, especially those in Bafa State, he went to the Caribbean Development Bank and borrowed some money to ensure that these ordinary people would have had toilets, because most, or if not all, of these people had no toilets, had no running water. And so it was important. And so today, when you look back 45, 50 years later, with the Dominican Labour Party in power, and you have a leader in the person of Roosevelt Skerrit, he saw the importance, again, of ensuring the legacy of Labour maintains. And he says that he's going to build some 5,000 houses for the ordinary people. And so far, he has built over 2,000, where over 2,000 Dominicans have gotten a key to their own homes, pay nothing to the state through the CBI program, and that is of great importance. That must be of great note. Right now we're seeing the former parliamentary representative of the Dominican Labour Party and also deputy leader of the Dominican Labour Party, Mr. Ambrose George, coming in, and waiting just for the usher to usher him in. She has just done that.
Mais en parlant de tout ça, Cécile, ou savons plus le monde a dit, le regard des situations, tant Dominique t'a payé indépendance pour aujourd'hui, ou que toujours quand tant Dominique t'a payé assistance, ça veut dire Dominique a garé pour t'a payé assistance dans différents pays, et il est qui dit mais pour tu jamais nous tenir pour garder pour indépendance, nous pour aller beg dans ce sens là.
You're not just sorry, I'm Amelia. You're not begging. What independence has done is to give us the opportunity now to open our wings, because before independence, the British were the ones having to see about our affairs, our financial affairs. Until when we became an associated statehood, we took charge of our finances. But when we became independence, what it did is to give us opportunities to be members of international organizations, international groups like the United Nations. And so the British didn't have to represent us. And so we had the opportunity to formulate our own foreign policies, and not that of the foreign policies of Europe, like that we see of Guadeloupe and Martinique. And so every independent country, to include that of Barbados, Jamaica, Guyana, wherever, have found themselves, making requests of other countries. The United States, they have very strong ties with China, where they too borrow money from China. And so it's not just Dominica, and I don't want us to just figure out that Dominica is the only one that is really seeking for financial assistance. We know now in Antigua, we know of the presence of the monetary fund, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, that they have to go to really help in their economy. We too, in early 2000 and prior, that we sat with the IMF to help us to formulate an economic viability for our country. We have since then been out of the woods with the IMF, and we have seen the World Bank on board with us, helping in the development of Dominica. And so when you look at the work of Roosevelt Skerrit as Prime Minister, in terms of education, once upon a time, Amelia, you may not know, once upon a time, Dominica, the government of Dominica would have given one ONE, one scholarship, one island scholarship. And you would have seen students, the very bright students, would have lost that opportunity and would have had to go to the aid bank or to any other bank, the National Bank, to get funds from the parents, to get funds to help them to aspire. And that's why you find, as you would commonly hear, the bougie, people with economic prowess would be able to go to the bank and to help their children to become what they wished that they would like to be, doctors, and you can name it, whatever other profession. We saw the Labour Party under Roosevelt Skerrit broke that back. We are presently today that quite a number of students, over 400 or 500 students, have been given the opportunity to be given higher tertiary education. And so it must not be looked like as if that the country has to go out begging. It's not necessarily begging. You have to understand that there are organizations, that's why they are formed, like the IMF, the World Bank, and others, financial institutions, that have been placed really for countries who would require that kind of assistance.
Chaque semaine, tu as aussi, puis là, regardez, différents gouvernements qui prennent l'office. Ok, ouais, il a établi différentes relations diplomatiques. Enfin, même Patrick John était établi en relation et puis Korea. Nous voyons que même le petit un gouvernement qui a été établi avec Taïwan.
Taiwan was the Freedom Party.
Freedom Party.
In 1983.
UWP.
What UWP did was they sever ties, or not sever, they made ties with the Republic of Cuba. So they did in 1996, about 1996 and 1997, that the United Party actually brought diplomatic relationship with the Republic of Cuba with us. And we have since then seen Roosevelt Skerrit
with China.
With China and many other countries.
Bis e ka fè mon plaisir le mou katan tellement doué qui président ka recevoir ou sa qualification ho différents ambassadeur qui ka représenter pays en Dominique dernièrement la nous tan monsieur Wood hod l'Angleterre.
And that is important too, you know, because when in 2000 Dominica had relationship with no more than some 42 countries. Right now, Dominica has relationship with over 106 countries of the world, and that says that Dominica is opening up its doors, and many countries are opening up its doors to Dominica. Especially when you go to the United Nations, you know, you sit and you understand people's policies, you understand the values of some countries, and by virtue of this, you know, government would establish ambassadors, and those ambassadors their duties are to really help in the development of opening on more doors, and that's one of the things that Vince Henderson must be complimented for really working in the United Nations and getting us so many different non-traditional countries to be part and parcel of their relationships.
C'est important pour moun comprendre bénéfice ces relations ça là c'est pas année pour dire Dominique regarder pour faire moun venir ici faire ça le pays nous pour prendre charge pays nous il est important pour moun comprendre qui relation ça là c'est pas encore pour moun venir prendre charge pays mais il a bénéficié nous tellement différentes manières puis encore ou parler de relation qui UWP TND mettre ensemble avec Cuba, mais nous avons bénéfice de la relation qui nous avec Cuba, nous avons bénéfice qui nous avons pays chinois par exemple, même pays l'Inde, ça c'est India, même l'Angleterre qui nous sortit en bas.
Because just imagine the first country that created this relationship with us, bilateral relationship with us, was Venezuela. The first country that had that relationship with us when we became an independent state. And today, 43 years later, we are actually seeing the benefit of Venezuela. Sometimes some people talk their own talk in thin air, not understanding what this relationship meant. And so, by virtue of the relationship, you know, Venezuela has been placed as the fifth largest country of the world in terms of production of oil. And so Dominica has seen the importance of creating and continuing that relationship with Venezuela. And so they were part of ALBA, or we are part of ALBA, and so we have seen the Petrocarib program in Dominica working very, very, very well. We have seen, prior to we having a relationship with Cuba, that the Dominican Labour Party, with that of Rosie Douglas, as part of the Dominican Labour Party, created a relationship outside of government, but from party to party. We ourselves got scholarships. But now, when the United Workers' Party established that relationship, what you saw much more is given to us. And every so often, you would hear that there are nurses and there are doctors from Venezuela coming to help our medical system, and you're hearing Dominicans going across to Cuba to be given the kind of training and schooling that will be required for the continuous development of Dominica. We have seen the Chinese themselves. Right now, we have seen the house of the president, the president's palace, as we normally say, was built by the Chinese through the relationship that was established. We have seen the sports stadium where we were yesterday. We have seen the magnitude of that sports stadium to Dominica. From that, we saw both international cricket to include that of Test. And we have seen our own Shane Shillingford have gone there on 3 occasions, 2 occasions to take 5 wickets and 1 occasion to take 6 wickets. That again, in the eyes of in front of Dominicans. We have seen the roads, the West Coast roads that the Chinese have been able to assist us in. Right now we're talking about the hospital, and they have assisted us in the development of the hospital. So it talks quite a lot of those relationships, what they can really do. Dominica has a relationship with Moscow, and you have seen what the Moscow relationship has done for us in terms of our development. Now we are seeing Senator Rolle coming in, greeting the wife of the wife of Patrick John, Mrs. Desiree John, Senator Rolle.
Senator Rolle, oui, quand il est venu encore tous les autres membres officiels là, aujourd'hui, pour donner une petite consolation, ça, pour soulager, dans le sens, la famille qui là, aujourd'hui, encore Senator Rolle, qui a une opportunité pour lui-même d'aider pour Patrick John. Et bien, M. Joseph, encore nous avons parlé de bénéficier de relation ça là, qui nous, Dominique, heureusement pour nous, qu'a injoué. Puis, moi, je regarde Assemblée générale des Nations Unies, ça c'est UN General Assembly qui prend place lundi. Et bien, moi, je regarde ministère pour les affaires santé, puis ça fait la majorité c'était le ministère de la santé en ces différents pays. Et bien, ministère pour la santé République Congo. Enfin, pleurer, on n'est pas pleurer, c'est style l'imposition. Et puis, là, il est parlé de ce challenge là qu'il a avec Covid, avec position qui y a, situation qui y a présent avec Covid. Avec là, regardez Congo qui a fait parmi les pays d'Afrique. Vous savez, ça c'est tellement un grand pays, un continent, enfin. Pour nous, on domine un petit pays, quand même, si vous regardez, vous voyez quand même là. Pour ça qui nous a bénéficié si tellement en temps ça là, challenge ça là, Covid, à cause des relations qui nous nient et puis différents pays nous nient.
And that should not go unnoticed, you know. I mean, you're speaking of Congo, but there are other large countries of the world that are actually fighting with COVID. France, Great Britain, normally say Great Britain, but the United Kingdom, the UK, they too are fighting and grappling with. We saw some parts of Europe last year, they themselves fighting with the issue of COVID. But we as a country, we can say that we are blessed, and not just blessed. The relationship that we have really created with many other countries of the world, we have seen the people of China themselves. We've seen Ambassador Nanton is now entering Ambassador Nanton, ambassador to Libya. Again, we're talking about relationships, you know. Because when we talk about this relationship, Libya, with the NEP program, the first $1 million US was given to us by Muammar Gaddafi and his administration.
C'était Douglas qui était établi relation ça là.
Douglas was the one who established the relationship, but we have seen Prime Minister Minister Skerrit has created even a greater relationship with Libya, and having Mr. Nanton as the ambassador. And we have seen, as I said earlier on, the first $1 million US was given to us by the people of and government of Libya. You know, it's really sad to note that the way that Muammar Gaddafi had to leave this earth. I think that Africa themselves would have missed, especially the Arab states, would have missed a great leader like that of Muammar Gaddafi, who himself contributed quite a lot to the world, who himself fought for the people of Libya. We know prior to Muammar Gaddafi coming into power in '69 that most of the oil wells were belonging to the North American states, and so Muammar Gaddafi, in his quest of ensuring that the people of Libya gets their fair share, that he nationalized quite a number of those wells, and so he was not being given favor by that of the United States. And I'm clear to see this thing and open to see these things, because many times so many of us are scared to really talk about those issues. But we have to look at the history of things and what really came down, as we normally say, what comes down on the ordinary poor people, and we're using the mites of we're seeing now Mr. Blackmore, I think PS of housing. No, not housing, sorry. PS in telecommunication, I think. He was PS in housing once upon a time.
Yes.
Did a very good job. He's coming in and he's within the protocol of, he's within the ushers to really usher him to.
Il pour garder vraiment développement Dominique, autant et même sortir dans affaires politiques, qui ça quoi sentiment il
I think maybe he said a few things. One, he must have said a good job, because when he left, or when he was forcefully required to leave, he would have said that I establish relationships by becoming an independent state. So all of these countries that we now have relationships it's because of my doing to become an independent state. And that, for me, is a great success. He would have said that for the ordinary man, when he arrives at the age of 60, that he would have something that he would be able to live on until his passing. He would have said, in terms of the gateway to the world through seaport, that he created or established and built and construct the Woodbridge Bay. He would have said that for ordinary people who never knew that they would have lived in a two-room house or three-room house with pipe-borne water, that he has given them that opportunity. He would have said that in terms of land reform, many farmers, as Minister of Agriculture, if it wasn't through his continuous program of land reform from that of E.O. Libla, that many farmers today would not be talking about the amount of crops and lands that they would have had. And maybe some people would not even have, he could say that, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of feeder roads, agricultural roads to the gardens, because he did quite a number of those roads. Maybe he could have said that it wasn't for him and his works outside of party politics in bringing in a man like Curtis Augustus into the fold. Curtis would not have been as impressive as he would have been to the rest of the Caribbean.
Kosa le autant kote tout aspect la vie sociale qui Mr. Patrick John qui est touché. Malheureusement, on tenu on ça même qui une discussion, mais vous savez on monte qu'à essayer faire un point qui a dit est-ce nous à Dominique Lombilier qui ça Patrick John fait est-ce nous à Lombilier qui était un monde qui prend l'argent que ça pour il même couché là exposé l'état aujourd'hui c'est pas un monde qui mérite ça qui ça dit.
In life, there are regrets. In life, there are things that you would do that you would not have been pleased about. And I'm sure that even looking at the success, Patrick, looking at his success, that if it's one thing he would have liked to erase, is taking that 4.5 years of jail, been sentenced for 12 years for the alleged overthrow of the legitimate government of Dame Eugenia Charles. He, for sure, maybe would have said that if I knew, I would have had different friends in terms of giving me a better understanding as to how the political landscape was, instead of trying to make me think that I'm so powerful and mighty. Because at that time, Patrick was very, very powerful in terms of his popularity. And so everybody was chief. And in doing so, he would have said, boy, if I had a second chance, I wonder if I would have had Leo Austin in my cabinet. If I had a second chance, I wonder if I would have taken the advice of Henkel Christian, by telling me not to resign, and he resigned later, by telling me to go to Parliament, and he did not support me in Parliament, to Parliament after. And so I'm sure in Patrick's quiet time, I'm sure that there would have been regrets that he would have had, knowing as the former Prime Minister, the last Premier, Minister of Finance, Minister of Communication and Works, Minister of Education, Minister of Health, Minister of Home Affairs, and the first Prime Minister, taking all of this success and maybe lumping one bad decision could have made him less important, if you want to say that, because that's what may have happened during the period of Patrick being alive, and unfortunately that the people who knew, like myself, who knew of Patrick's success among the ordinary people, among even some of the elites, because in those days Patrick John was very much loved by the Syrians. So the Karams, the Abrahams, the Nassif, all of these people who were Syrians who came into Dominica, was really truly a fan, in love with Patrick. And so I'm sure in his quiet times, and maybe even when himself and Desiree would speak, I'm sure that they would have rumblings about what he should have done, what advice he should have taken, and upon reflection would have said, this is what I wouldn't have done if I had been given this chance again. This is not what I would have done if given the chance again. Because I remember in 2000 election, when he ran for the Roland Constituency, he made a statement which didn't go down good for me, when he said that if given a chance again, I will not make the same mistakes again. I'll make a different type of mistake. It tells me that you've been doing a mistake.
Well, um, I think what he meant, and you allow me to say that in English. I think what he meant, though, there will always be a mistake. There will always be something that will not resonate with somebody else. There is always somebody that you will offend, even if you do not want to do it intentionally.
If you offend somebody and you know within your heart that you did not offend the person,
wasn't intentional.
I'm saying if someone feels that you offend him or her,
Mm-hmm.
and you know within your own good conscience that you did not offend that person, that's not a mistake for me. That's not a mistake for me. If I know that I say to you, Amelia, I think today your hair is not done well. I think yesterday was much better.
Mm-hmm.
And Amelia get offended about saying today and not yesterday. I don't think that I did a mistake by saying to Amelia that her hair is not done well today.
Well, how you think and how Amelia feels is too different. And at the end of the day, how I may have felt in itself, I can take that much further than just within myself.
But the conviction is about you, eh?
Yes.
If you, as the person,
Mm-hmm.
have felt that, yes, I've said so to Amelia, and I think I said it to Amelia badly,
Mm-hmm.
that's the mistake.
But many times many times, unfortunately, we do not acknowledge our own mistakes.
No, I think, as I said earlier about Patrick John, every one of us should be able to do an introspection of ourselves.
And you think he
as
did?
we go along. And I think, honestly, the person that we say that Patrick John is, especially when he went into the religious part of life,
Mm-hmm.
he would have done some introspection. And he would have admitted some of the mistakes. And if given a chance, or if he felt openly that he could have mentioned it, he would have done that. But maybe, which we all know, that when I make my mistake, I go to my Almighty God and speak with Him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to speak to anybody about my mistake. I can go to God. But it is always good that the brother man that you have offended, that you should go to him and say, I'm sorry that I have offended you.
Mais si on est pour examiner la situation en ces temps-là, la était vraiment sérieux. Il était sérieux, oui, mais là, regardez là, nous y a présent 40 et quelques années qui passaient. Est-ce que si une situation comme ça, pour faire, même dans le temps qui est moderne, il était que les mêmes résultats, il était que plus pire?
You see, today there's social media. And social media, it gives various people to give various opinions. And you would be able to evaluate the opinions of people and to take sides if you so wish, especially if you know what you wanted to do. For instance, if you are to speak to Patrick John about the free port in Portsmouth, he will tell you what his intention was. He will tell you why he thinks that it was a great program for Dominica. Another person on the other side would have said, but the world did not agree to the investor that you were trying to bring to Dominica. Why would you have brought this investor to Dominica? Do you think bringing that investor would have given us the liberty to continue? And I'm sure that he would have been able to evaluate these things if there was social media. In those days, there was no social media. In those days, there was much more paperwork, meaning that there were much more newspapers that would, if they're on your side, they would have given you your credence. I know that there was one newspaper at the time, which was the Chronicle, and a number of people had their various views of the Chronicle and the kind of things that they would have brought across to the people. The Chronicle was that of the Catholic Church. As we are speaking, we are seeing the secretary of the president, Mr.
Miss
Skerrit. Miss Blackmore is actually greeting the family of Patrick John and now making her way to the casket to pay her last respects.
Some of the view that I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, but some of the view that treason is the worst crime that anybody can commit in any state, and there are laws, that addresses treason. However, we are here today with someone who've committed that act.
I sometimes argue that issue, and sometimes I try my best to stay away from that topic, because when I don't have full proof and full facts of things that for me that's a myth, I try my best not to discuss it, and I'll tell you why I said a myth. Sorry. Patrick, we will remember, as was told. First of all, it must be said that for that same act, he was sentenced to jail. The first act, that first time that he went to the courts, the case was dismissed, and we know that when the case was dismissed, that the government at the time made a plea and applied to have the case be retried, and when the case was retried, that he was given 12 years.
12 years.
I do not know what is the I don't know what is the sentence for treason, if it's lifetime, but he was given 12 years. And upon the 12 years that he was given, he only received just about 5 years in prison. He was released on the 29th of May. So I try my best. I think deep about the issue. I think deep about the crime that he was actually sent to jail for. And then I asked myself the question: if he committed treason, why was he pardoned? And I don't think it was ever said to us why he was pardoned.
That is what again tickles my brain, because that very same government in which he tried to overthrow was the same government who pardoned him. So it makes you wonder, was it a situation that was as grave as we made it out to be, or was it something far less?
And that's why I try my best to try to stay away from the subject matter, because that's not something that I have. You're not
too versed on, as opposed to.
I don't want to say the versed. I don't want to say versed. I'll stay away from using the word versed. I want to say that I do not have the full facts of the matter, because I had conversation with Patrick on the matter. I think the answers given to me, I believe it is a private conversation we have. I don't think it's my duty to talk to people about the response that was given to me. But I have my reasons for shying away from the subject matter. And as I said, I hope that people understand what I'm talking about. Yes, the history will show that Patrick took 4.5 years in jail for a crime that was called treason, but he was pardoned some years later. That's how I want to deal with the history, and I rather deal with it that way.
Oui, mais bagala c'est en pile, même si vous pratiquez les toucher en frontière, mais vous savez que toujours en l'esprit et mon nous vivre dans une société là, un monde qui toujours les sectionner puchi the wise, cause même si vous pratiquez weapon section en frontière comme on dit, mais enfin ou ba nous question qui mon quoi que nous ça accepter, comme ça nous là. Moi j'avais tout officier même gouvernement même parlement à ce côté gouvernement.
I came in just about 9:30. I'm not so sure if the opposition leader actually he hasn't arrived.
No.
Yeah, I haven't seen the opposition leader.
No. Yes. So
and I also have not seen Senator Masler.
No.
I've not seen Senator Masler.
No.
We have seen all of the members of government paying their last respects to Mr. John. The first person was the president of the Commonwealth of Dominica, His Excellency Charles Angelo Savrin.
He was the first one here.
First one.
Yes.
And then the Prime Minister. And we saw the ministers of government, and also we saw ambassadors coming to view the body of Mr. John. A little later, though,
Parce que plus tard, nous avons pensé que Casket là qui est fermé, avec les témoins qui est pour place, ça fait il y a Théorie, mais est-ce que vous connaissez raison pour qui enfin peut-être famille a décidé de que théorie à la clou l'église anglicane?
No, I know that he was eventually an Anglican by virtue of his wife, who is an Anglican. He was a warden at the Anglican Church, so which means that he must have been a high-ranking official of the Anglican Church. Today he'll be buried adjacent to Pond, WOM Pond.
Okay.
He'll be buried adjacent, head to head, of WON Pond. That for me is of great importance. WON Pond in 1967, we remember that he was the one who wrote the national song. It was first called the national song in 1967. It was an anthem, we were not independent. And in 1978, we adopted that same national song to be our national anthem.
Because nous avons appris encore les pays là, que ça c'est un chantier.
It was
It's
a song.
anthem. It's a song.
In 1967.
Before you become independent, it's a
Right,
song.
it's a song.
You only have an anthem if you're independent.
Right, it's an independent state. So the song, the national song was Isle of Beauty, Isle of Splendor. And the song, it was actually composed and written by Pond, and it was eventually, music was placed on that song by Lemon Christian. Christian lives right next door to where Pond is buried. So you can, where we're going to be standing this afternoon, we could take a stone and send.
So it would be a stone
throw away from where Patrick will be buried and where WOM Pond will be buried. I think the W is Wilfred something Morgan Pond, WOM Pond, Wilfred Oscar Morgan Pond, WOM Pond. His full name is Wilfred Oscar Morgan Pond, and Patrick will be buried, as I said, adjacent to him, in the same graveyard at the Anglican Church. This afternoon at 2:00 we'll be going to the cathedral, and around this area for me is of great importance. I should say the brother Lemon Christian was the brother of H.L. Christian, who was Minister of Education under Patrick John's regime. And around these areas I was saying is of great importance. The Catholic Church has the St. Mary's Academy, the Catholic Church itself, the St. Gerard's Hall, as it was called, the care center, as we all know. And I always try to find out, and I never found out whether or not the tropical craft was that of the property of the church. I never found that out. I don't know. Someone can help me to find out if it was. And just opposite of that was where the Chronicle itself was. Now you have the residence of the bishop just in that same area. And if you go west of the Catholic Church, you would get the Methodist Church right there. So that area, then you have the Wesley High School, which belongs to the Methodist Church. So this area, Turkey Lane and Jewel Street, of great importance in the landscape of Dominica history.
Ano viwe Cecil tant été pendant comme on mentionne WOM Pond tant été pendant un pays qui vient pendant un pays qui a tout pas quoi qui est pour défendre quoi fait au type quoi toutes ces bagages ça là fait en position ça là pour exemple on est pour catcher c'est tellement bagaille ou comment on dit identifier ou que besoin en identité avec société en tant que ça là Dominique t'a payé l'indépendance Dominique a besoin en identité qui ça qui fait Dominique différent à l'Angleterre, par exemple, ici, qui est sorti à l'Angleterre. Comme ça, est-ce qu'on peut changer ces temps-là là? La Patrick John a une responsabilité à présent pour créer une identité pour Dominique. Premièrement, nous avons chanté en thème national, mais nous avons aussi pour identifier quoi nous et puis on doit pour sortir en bas l'Angleterre, doit pour l'Angleterre pour hausser, on doit pour ça. Qui manière qui tout ce bagage là.
And some of the things that he would have had to do in terms of identifying a flag that would represent Dominica, they would have, as cabinet, would have requested of people to do a collection of flags, and out of that collection, they would have determined which one would have been what they require, and so Olin Boli, who saw the need as himself as an artist, saw the need to do the flag of Dominica, which really resembled Dominica. The green in the flag is really representing the forest. The white would determine the rivers, the waterfalls, you know, the black of the people. The yellow would represent the Kalinago people. The 10 stars would also represent the 10 parishes of Dominica. Many times we forget the parishes. We look at constituencies.
Yes.
There are 10 parishes. We would have, in those days of going to school, we would see the 10 parishes: St. David, St. Joseph, St. Mark, St. Paul,
St. Patrick,
St. Patrick,
St. Peter,
St. Luke, St. Andrew, you know, 10 parishes. And then you have the parrot, which is our national, to
bird.
us, our national bird, the Cicero parrot. And again, as I said, the red representing the blood of the people. So the flag is a true representation of Dominica, with some colors and elements. And so wherever you go in the world and you see this flag with so many colors and elements, you will definitely know that it's Dominica.
C'est pour ça que regarder différentes activités qui sont sur international, par exemple, moi j'ai regardé Olympics qui passe dernièrement là avec un pays ni différents drapeaux. Moi venu pour réaliser qui en pile drapeau ni même couleur. Avec couleur c'est rouge, blanc, avec bleu. Avec les mots vraiment analyser tout ça avec là vous pouvez regarder l'histoire. L'Angleterre c'est un pays qui était ni un grand effet à un pile pays où la terre. Si non y était en charge ce pays là, si non y était ni en relation. Mais l'Angleterre.
If you look at Australia, remember
Australia.
the British control Australia.
Australia.
The British actually took prisoners from England and sent them to Australia to get their prison sentence. If you look at New Zealand themselves, their flags are almost similar to that
Of America, even America.
Even America itself. But when you look at us in the Caribbean, we show difference. You see St. Lucia with yellow,
Blue and black.
black. You know. We are seeing Barbados with blue, black, and I think yellow too.
Barbados, yes, Barbados blue, yellow and some black, yes.
And Grenada and St. Kitts almost the same
Yellow and green, yes.
Dominica is totally different. Guyana is totally different.
Guyana is more yellow and green and red.
We did not even adopt anything close to that of
I think we wanted to just
of the colonial
separate ourselves.
masters. And
That's what it was.
And you would remember in the 60s, you know, after the Federation failed, every Caribbean country felt that, hey, it's an opportunity for us to go to the independence. So Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, these countries, and Guyana, these four major countries who were head of the Federation, basically, took the toll of becoming independent countries. So many of them are beyond 40 and 50 years of independence, beyond 50 years of independence. Grenada became an independent state in February of 1974. St. Lucia became independent a few months after us in 1979. Antigua, I think on the 1st of November 1979, 1980, somewhere around that, Antigua. Then you had St. Vincent a little later on, you know, St. Kitts a little later on.
But why is it still called Federation though?
Yeah,
there is. I always try to make some stories on that. Why Saint Kitts is called Federation of Saint Kitts.
St. Kitts and Nevis. And they would like to be mindful. They like to know that you do not forget the Nevis.
Yes. Like that of
Trinidad and Tobago.
and like that of Saint Vincent and the
And
Grenadines.
right. Antigua and Barbuda.
Antigua and Barbuda. All these are part and parcel of the landmass of those countries. In Nevis, you may not know they have their own premier.
Yes.
You know, in Nevis they have their own, and that is for me. That's for me it's unique, you know, for St. Kitts and Nevis. You know, St. Kitts has the prime minister, and in Nevis they have their
Oh,
premier.
if we wouldn't stray away from where we are, but what I love about St. Kitts too, there is that nation pride.
Mm-hmm.
There is that pride in St. Kitts, and the people there, the Kittitians, they have a love. I'm not saying we don't have a love for country. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, they are bold when it comes to their identity.
Not just St. Kitts. When you look at Jamaica, people may want to speak of Jamaica whatever way they want, but the Jamaicans are very proud people, and many other regional countries like ours would want to adopt some of
that
Jamaica's boldness and the ability to get things done. You know, it's just that sometimes, as you may know, that their economic status might be always in trouble because of the fact that they have their own central bank and
their own currency.
Their own currency, and the value of the monies can sometimes go down to the value of that of the U.S. We in the OECS, we are very fortunate. We and Barbados are very fortunate to know that our dollar is in Barbados is $1 to 2. In the OECS, our $1 US is equivalent to $2 and I think 68 cents. That says of our strength.
Yes.
You know, that of Barbados too. When you look at Trinidad with their own currency, our currency is also strong to that of the Trinidad dollar. I mean, you can
TT dollars.
Yeah, TT
yes.
dollars. You know, and so when you look at the OECS, we can tell ourselves that our former leaders had a good knowledge as to how exactly that they were going to strengthen our currency. And today, many years later, you know, we have seen our currencies stronger compared to many countries of the region.
Of the Caribbean.
You know?
So it just goes back to speak of the influence, I must say, that our former leaders, and even now lying in state here, Patrick John, it says a lot to you know, their influence on so many aspects of our lives. Now we can even talk about our currency when we've decided, you know, yes, we wanted to become independent, but independent on so many levels, and certain things that, like when we spoke about our relations we've established over the years with certain countries. So it just speaks, and you tend to wonder when you look at how far we've become in terms of technology and how advanced we are, and even then there was nothing of such, you know, back then. But it just speaks to, you know, sometimes you wonder if these people even had a dream, like Martin Luther.
Well, you see, I'm not so sure it was a dream. Certain situations happened, and when it happened, that you tell yourself you have had enough. For instance, as a colonial state belonging to Britain, everything that you would have had to do, you would have had to get the approval of the British, and sometimes the British doesn't understand our culture, do not understand who we are, and so the frustration process would have kicked in many times, and so it was of greater importance to us in the region. Even if we were small, even if our economy was small, we saw the importance of sovereignty, we saw the importance of statehood, and so those leaders of before Errol Barrow, Michael Manley, Forbes Burnham, you know, as a matter of fact, in the independent process in Guyana started,
Church Jagan, but Forbes Burnham was the one who actually attained independence. Michael Manley in Jamaica, Errol Barrow in Barbados, also in Guyana, in Grenada, you had Eric Gary. In Dominica, you had Patrick John. In Antigua, you had Via Bird. In St. Kitts, it's Bradshaw, you know. And so when you look at the countries of the Caribbean that are not independent, Montserrat still is under Britain. Anguilla is still under Britain. You have some St. Eustatius, Tortola. They are still British.
I think
they call themselves British Virgin Islands?
Yeah, British Virgin Islands. I think
Yes.
Just recently where they had the first female governor.
Yes.
Was it Cayman?
In Cayman.
The
that's
Cayman?
correct, yeah.
Cayman. Still under the British.
Still under British,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So you still have a few countries, but when you make the comparison though with the French countries in the region, the French has invested quite a lot. The French must have looked at these two countries, Guadeloupe and Martinique, as place for rescue. They look at this place. Each of the countries having 450,000 people. That's about 900,000 people, maybe close to a million. The investment that they can make in these countries, the power that they can get within these countries to create the link in the region. The French have decided not to relinquish power to the French.
Even
and
now
to
in
the
these
to Guadeloupe and
current
Martinique.
times.
We would know, even before Dominica spoke of independence, Guadeloupe was actually speaking about independence. And there was a popular group in Guadeloupe, you know, up to this present day. They still speak of independence, but you find that the younger generation, based on the kind of relationship between France and themselves, they would not want to actually miss that. In those days, when we, under the British, we would have a British passport, and we would be able to go to England, you know, without the hassles that maybe you would have had now, where you can go for a particular period of time without a visa or without, you know, the necessary permits. But we must say, as a sovereign state, we have done quite a lot better. Quite a lot better.
Est-ce que dit qui en fait là on mentionne ces pays ça comme Guadeloupe, Martinique, ça c'est peut-être un aspect qui est différent. Mais là on regarde des places comme Montserrat par exemple, Toto là ces pays ça là. Est-ce que dit qui l'année ou pendant nous télé de bout pas quoi nous. Mais est-ce que dit qui yo perd un sens là qui il est tellement qu'a affecté la terre à présent nous avons pandémie Covid nous avons cyclone ou ça nous avons changement en climat à présent qu'a si tellement grand effet sur petit pays comme ça est-ce que au dit peut-être c'est une raison qui a décidé bon la moyen puis c'est là tout bagaille fini c'est mon besoin d'assistance
you have to look also these leaders of these parts, you know, they have to evaluate a number of things. Number one, the size of the country and the population. Whether or not the population would be able to generate the kind of revenue that is required for the state to remain afloat. So a country with 14,000 people, you know, and would it be viable to go independent rather than be a department of England, where England would help them financially in the things that they would like to. The same thing for Anguilla. Anguilla, a very small place, if just about the same 14,000 people or less, it could be less. They have not seen the value of really seeking for political independence. And so it's within their right as a country to determine, you know, what next step that they should take. And I think they are of the view that this is not the right time. Maybe sometime in the future, this is not the right time. They have not pursued the idea of.
Mais qu'est-ce que la population dominique est en ce temps-là nous venons indépendants?
Dominica, for me, since I grew up, I've always known Dominica has a population of 71,000. So maybe around that time it would have been the same population, 75,000. We know that quite a lot of Dominicans are out. More Dominicans are outside than inside, you know. But you have to understand the vision that we had. We first took an autonomy process. We did not just jump into independence. I want us to understand that. we took an autonomy process, and the autonomy process that we took was to become an associated statehood. And once we become an associated statehood, we look to see all the pros and cons. Libya, on the 1st of March 1967, himself, who had a different thought of how he wanted his country, Dominica. Libya, as an extension officer in the from the Ministry of Agriculture, felt that it was important, of great importance, to really ensure that things would be done in such a way that they would prepare Dominica for what it's supposed to be. You know?
Ah ben ouais, quand vous savez nous là, enfin, moi crois qu'il cadavre aujourd'hui qui est exposé jusqu'à midi, enfin, à Cécile.
Yes.
Mais
And the acting police chief, Mr. Cobbett,
yes.
is making his way.
Puis nous c'est enfin mon qui était premier ministre pays avant comme ça nous espère mon peut-être Edison James aussi pour venir d'aider pour payer OSP là aujourd'hui on parle avec chef département police nous comprenons aussi qui met aux eaux nous pas ouais ça mais aux eaux c'est posé là aussi juge ça c'est Justice Bonnie Stevenson nous pas ouais
also the resident judge, I'm not so sure if she has entered. That is
Adrian Roberts. Non, nous pas aussi ça c'est différents secrétaires, différents secrétaires. Un seul secrétaire, moi quoi nous ouais.
Have you seen the members of the diplomatic corps? I don't think I've seen them yet.
Non. Comme ça, nous. Qu'est-ce que vous voyez les autres membres officiels pour ça venir là aujourd'hui puis enfin ça c'est dernière opportunité qui le monde qui ni pour d'aider pour bon
yes
parce que voyez encore et même caravli mais
only the members will be living in first
mais pour mon moi ça c'est mon dernière opportunité pour voir sur caméra manière qui ont habillé Patrick John way
I saw it yesterday well cladded. I suspect as a warden of the Anglican Church.
Oui, puis c'est mon l'église, en nom l'église. Oh yes. Mais puji. Mais quand on fait point ça là, il a fait un pas de sens. Qui est habillé en nom l'église. Pour qu'on manière on pète qui est habillé.
And I'm sure the family must be proud to note that Patrick John brought Dominica during the independence, and the flag of Dominica, much as he's getting a state funeral, the flag of Dominica has been placed on his casket.
Et nous avons aussi parlé quand nous avons cadavre là, correction cadavre là. Puis on a parlé puis on mounier avec mon lading. What did they do to him? Puis il pas changé. Cadavre là pas changé. Il est en sanoka qui est anglais embam. Ça c'est là nous ça c'est en manière qui ou ka préserver un cadavre pour ça durer plus long au compte ça si ou pas fait enfin cadavre là même changer c'est un cadavre il pas ni la vie encore comme ça condition cadavre là qui changer content qu'a passé mais enfin il fait ça qui embam qui a dit il préserver cadavre là pour ça durer plus long c'est pour ça un pile monde te dit mais c'est comme si visually pas changé c'est pas il mort pour
that's the observation I made yesterday that Milia, that the face of Patrick John did not change. And I want to compliment the people who have done the work, the funeral home that has done the work on the body of Patrick John. He died on the 6th of July, and still has not yet buried. That's like how many weeks? July?
Months.
August.
Just September.
So that's
more than
like
2 months.
like more than 2 months. That's like 12 weeks. You know, and today is lying in state, and more than 12 weeks, his body still looks firm. The face, the features of Patrick, looking at him, was still the same. You know, I looked for that black mole and I saw it. You know, persons who knew Patrick and his black mole when he wore that glasses, you would have seen it. You know, that black mole. You know, and that deep voice. You know, unique.
Il peut parler bas quand même.
No, il peut parler. You know, I looked at him. I ensured that I placed my hands on him, touch him. Just to
Oui,
say
mon
my
on
final-
fait ça.
just to say my final bye-bye
Comment
to
on
you.
t'a vraiment regardé si moi?
No, I just say my final goodbye, and he has tarry, and he has completed his mission. And I know a few years ago, a number of persons, about 4 years ago, a number of persons felt that Patrick John would die that particular day. And I remember the role that I played. And the Prime Minister of Dominica, present Prime Minister Roland Skerrit, was able to ensure that he was flown to Martinique.
Yes, I remember
to get the necessary medical treatment. That's something that we have not spoken about. That the government has been very much
That
instrumental.
was how long ago?
That's about 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
The government of Dominica, the work and the Ministry of Finance and the Prime Minister has been able to do to ensure that the first Prime Minister of Dominica continues living, and so it must be said that even the role that Mr. Skerrit has done before Patrick has done. We know that before, just about a year ago, that the Prime Minister made the statement that he would have given every Prime Minister a motor vehicle. Patrick John enjoyed this, and also an increase in his pension funds until his death, and so I know that by virtue of the Prime Minister of Dominica, Roland Skerrit, he has been able to give Patrick John his dues before he passed on, and those things must be said and must be told so that many other people will know that the present administration has done quite a lot in ensuring that Patrick John lived on to the present time that he died, until he died. And so even after he died, seeing what we saw yesterday and the involvement between the family and the government to ensure that the state funeral was actually made, I remember, some people talking some real foolishness to me, and saying that they hope that the state would give Patrick John a state funeral. And I said to these people, you're just speaking ignorance. By virtue of the fact that the man was a prime minister, first prime minister, the state would do nothing less. Because you see, in Dominica, we like to talk too fast. We want to be ahead of conversation. And so we fail to understand that there are procedures and there are processes that needs to be taken before making statements. And so at the appropriate time, people would have gotten, I think one of the things that must be discussed is in reference to when people like presidents, prime ministers, ministers of government, important people passed. When can we have, at what time should we have the half staff? That's of importance because I don't think that there is any hard and fast rule in reference to the half staff.
But if you allow me, Cecil, if I remember correctly, and you are subject to correction. If I remember, in situation like this back then, it would have been flowed to half mass until your burial. Wouldn't it have been so?
You see, time gone by, people did not stay as long as this.
That too.
So you have where when people died within less than a week, he would be buried, because we didn't have fridge or refrigerators, as we say, to put bodies,
Right.
So all of the things must be taken into consideration. And now you have all of those modern things that would extend, the arrangement for burials. People are not fortunate like before. So I'm saying that the United States as a federal system have a different process, But as we're speaking, we are seeing the acting chief of police, Mr. Corbett, side by side to that of the wife of Patrick John.
Mais il y a bien aussi, enfin, comme mentionné, vous savez, ça, Mr. John, c'est une opportunité pour un jury avant il est content pour observer, pour mentionner vraiment décision qui a gouvernement prend ou ça va pour pas mon opportunité monde qui déjà fait contribution monde qui déjà one service en position ou ça one service par l'état vraiment est important pour savoir qui gouvernement pour décision pour faire ces monde ça là vraiment pour montrer appréciation pour c'est pas plus quitter service là c'est pas plus pas qu'à one service là encore pour nous mettre yo à ce côté d'accord ça c'est tout thank you very much il est important pour ouais ça qu'a fait mais quand on a parlé nous avons secrétaire ministre pour les affaires finances madame Missy Henderson puis ça pose encore il y a une opportunité pour différents secrétaires
Financial Secretary, Financial Secretary, Dennis Edwards.
We understand when you have so many first names.
Yeah, you know. So Dennis Edwards will be coming to pay her last respect to Patrick John, but first will be ushered in by the usher from the protocol office to meet the family, and then she goes to the casket of the first Prime Minister, and then we see the secretary, permanent secretary in the Ministry of
Finance
of the Prime Minister,
yes,
Office of the Prime Minister, Missy Henderson. She's meeting the family, every one of them, and in a while she will for sure herself pay her last respect to Mr. John. We have also seen the House of Assembly clerk, Mr. Daniel James himself, you know, paying his last respects to the body, but before again to meeting the family of Patrick John, and he is about now going to the casket where he will pay his last respect. As we are seeing, Missy Charles is now living.
Missy Henderson
is now living.
All right. Oui, avec tant parce que j'imagine nous c'est là pour tout ça c'est là. Avec nous pouvons ça ouais venir enfin ou ça même qui en cérémonie dans sens
I'd like to inform our listeners that today there will be no 1:15 news.
Yes.
That's due to the fact that we would like to put our announcements out. We have quite a number of announcements, and we just want to apologize to all our listeners far and wide that today there will be no 13:15 total news.
Yes.
Yes. Entirely.
Yes.
13:15 total news.
Yes.
You know, so just want to apologize.
Right, pour bonne raison, quand nous qui aussi mener au latement quand qui pour place ça c'est bien plus tard pour midi comme ça qui ba une opportunité pour informer le public là quand ça qu'a fait et puis c'est annoncement ça c'est quelque chose qui est nécessaire.
You know, earlier we were talking about the presidents who served Dominica, and we were indicating that this building here where we are was actually the house first of all of the colonial governor who was sent from England to reside here, and then in 1955, 9th of May 1955, Louis Coles-Latig, who was then at the time the General Secretary in the Windward Islands, was actually given the position of deputy, governor, and until he became governor, and he was governor from 1967 to 1978, the night of Dominica become an independent state, you know, and we are here really to observe, you know, the life of Patrick John, and so we have had several presidents serving Dominica. I think 8 presidents. We spoke earlier on of we stopped on Jenna Armour, who became president of Dominica 21st of July 1979 up to the 25th of February 1980. He served for some 249 days. And then we had Aurelius Marie, who took office on the 25th of February 1980 to 19th of December 1983. So Aurelius Marie did some 3 years, 297 days. And Clarence Signoret Clarence Skerrit, who himself was a cabinet secretary many years ago in the 60s, 70s. Cabinet secretary Clarence Skerrit. On the 19th of December 1983, he took office as president, and left office in 1993. So he served 2 terms. First president to serve 2 terms. That's Clarence Skerrit. He served 9 years and 310 days. That is the man Clarence Skerrit. And then you had Crispin Sorrento. Crispin Sorrento, in the days when Patrick John himself applied for the mornings at the CDB Bank, that Crispin Sorrento himself worked at the CDB Bank at that time. So Crispin Sorrento became president of Dominica on the 25th of October 1993 until the 5th of October 1998. He served some 4 years, 345 days. And you had Vernon Shaw, who himself was also a cabinet secretary, I think under Patrick John, as a matter of fact. When Dominica went to England to attain independence, Vernon Shaw was part of that team in 1976. So Vernon Shaw, on the 6th of October 1998, became president of Dominica and left office on the 1st of October 2003. So he served for 4 years, 360 days. Then you had Nicholas Liverpool, who Mr. Liverpool started on 1st of October 2003 to September 2012, which means that he served for 8 years and 352 days. That says 8 years he served some 2 terms as the president of Dominica. And we had Elliot Williams, who came in from the 17th of September 2012 to 2nd of October 2013. So Elliot Williams made 1 year and 15 days. And our present incumbent, as you can see, present president, His Excellency Charles Angelo Savre, who came in as president on the 2nd of October 2013. As I said, he's incumbent. He's there for now 7 years, and you can add the number of days.
If you allow me, I want to ask you these 3 questions for the sake of educating the public. One,
If you have the answers, right?
well, I would like to think that I have full confidence that you will answer these questions. But one, when I look at the time that Mr. Nicholas Liverpool came into office, would that be the only time that we had both a prime minister and a president from the same constituency?
That's correct. Mr. Liverpool from the Granby constituency and Pierre Charles from the Granby constituency. General Amo is from Paybush, and General Amo was there under the interim government, and Oliver Serafin was then the interim prime minister. Sir Lucas Latig as president, interim himself, was from Roseau. Patrick John was from Roseau, but ran for the constituency of Roseau North. So I wouldn't say,
So that was the only situation, only case.
That was the only situation.
Okay,
yes.
Second question, again. Let me see which one I want to tackle first. How many years is a president allowed to stay in office? How many terms?
Two terms. So that's 10 years. 2 terms.
But I've noticed
each term is 5 years.
But I've noticed somebody. There's a particular president who was here for 9 years.
Well, I'm saying no. I'm just saying 2 terms.
2 terms.
Yes.
2 terms.
Yes, 2 terms.
2 terms of 4 years.
2 terms of 4 years. Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes it depends. For instance, remember, you have been elected from the parliamentary people. So the people in parliament are the one electing the president. We're now seeing P.S. Roberts and her husband.
Yes.
Thomas, and her husband. Her husband is Robert Thomas, and she's
That's Esther Thomas.
Esther Thomas. They meeting the family of the deceased and John.
Okay, so you said it's 2 terms.
2 terms.
So what created the difference with Clarence Skerrit, who was there for over 9 years?
Clarence Signoret. Clarence Signoret came in 1983. And I need, that's a good question. That's a very good question. And for the 2 terms would have ended because he had some 310 days. So it means that he fell short of some 55 days.
Well, he was there for more than 2 terms for sure. He's 9 years and 310. That's what.
No, you have to be there for 2 terms.
2 terms.
A term is 5 years.
Oh, 5 years.
Yes, a term
not
is
4.
5 years. Not 4.
So it's the
5
presidential.
Yes.
It's the U.S. president.
The US
It's
president
4
is
years.
4 years.
Dominica is 5.
Federal system,
Federal.
Westminster system.
Right. So 5 for same as the prime minister.
Yes.
So here's speaking of prime minister. Does our constitution allow for a former prime minister to take office as the president? Oh, I haven't seen that happen.
It hasn't happened. And the possibility, yes, there's a possibility. Because from what I gather in reference to a person becoming president, General Amor eventually became a parliamentary representative in the
after his presidency.
After his presidency,
Okay.
even if he was in
Well,
interim.
technically, he demotes himself. There.
Charles Savre was present incumbent.
He was a minister.
He was a minister of government. He acted prime minister.
Okay.
So he was a minister of government. He acted prime minister, and now he's president of the Commonwealth of Dominica. So yes, the possibility that if someone was prime minister, if someone was prime minister, the probability or the possibility exists that the person can become president.
With your the conversations that you've had with the late Patrick John, was there ever? Well, I know you said you want to keep some part of your conversation, private or to yourself, but was there any part of your conversation, or maybe from what you know of Patrick John, was there any interest in probably becoming president?
Never.
Never.
That question was asked.
Oh, okay.
That question was asked. Never had any intention to be the president of Dominica. And I don't think that would have crossed his mind because he only lasted just about 7 months after attaining independence.
Okay.
Okay. So that is how I would maybe answer the question. I don't think it would have ever crossed his mind.
Like when I listen to our now president, His Excellency Charles Savre, when the presentation of credentials from the various ambassadors, is there a particular qualification, that is required, or would you need to render a particular service in order to become president?
I really can't even answer this one.
Oh, I have given you 2 questions that you need to work.
When you look at the people who became president of Dominica, you could see the involvement. Mr. Nicholas was an attorney by profession. Crispin, I think, an economist. Clarence himself was a PS. Sorry, PS, yes, but also CAPSEC, Cabinet Secretary. Eliud Williams was a PS himself. General Amor was an attorney. I'm not so sure as I said, Lucas Latig was Secretary General for the Windward Islands way back in 1955. So maybe at the time, based on his portfolio, based on his position, that the British saw it fit to have him as governor of Dominica. Maybe in the interaction with him, saw the fitting person for the position when they decided that they were now taking their colonial governor to England and have Dominica having their own governor.
You'll have to forgive me because I was paying attention to the music that was, and I'm acting like I've won now. I cannot remember the artist, but I remember that particular song when Richie Valens, the rock star Richie Valens, died. That was one of the songs that was played, and it's resonating with me right now. That particular song, it's that it's just creating that particular mood right now, especially the one that we are in. So. Ça c'est le mot que parler créole moi pour je connaître comment il est déjà because we are puis nous pouvons enfin nous pouvons venir bout en fait programme là à bon matin quand nous chambre conférence pas parlement enfin mais nous chambre conférence président qu'on cadavre Patrick John exposé à l'État pour ba moun officiel opportunité pour yo ça dit d'aider pour respect yo ça pour aussi famille nous madame Lila garçon et enfin comme Mrs Joseph dit enfin 6 enfants il y aura 7 enfants 6 là avec grands enfants là aussi vous s'en imaginez sentiment yo là puis ça alors un petit moment tu vois plus tard enfin peut-être dans les temps encore yo kika dit bye bye dernier qu'on cherche la même qui a téoué nous avons pensé que l'esprit pas là il a quitté mais cadavre là qui a téoué après-midi à la cour l'église anglicane comme ça pas de langue encore ça c'est pour nous ça dit d'aider nous-mêmes ici et bien donc oui commencer petit peu plus tard moi et puis minutes avant des heures OK oui connecté puis pour faire ça qu'a fait les thèmes même.
Yes, at 12 o'clock we should say we are saying bye bye and to get ourselves prepared for the funeral mass at the Cathedral Chapel. I feel, as I said, mass. You know, when the churches say service, but in the Catholic, Methodist, Anglican, I think they say mass. So we will be preparing ourselves for 2 o'clock, and before 2 o'clock, as a matter of fact, for the actual mass. We have not had the program in reference to the mass this afternoon, but we know.
Mais pour moi les opportunités pour informer les gens qui c'est seulement les gens qui est invité qui ça attendez les témoins enfin nous attendons que le cabinet mette fait certains changements en régulation Covid pour certains monde en permission pour attendre même encore que ni officier police fait différents membres parlement famille même pas n'importe famille pas famille qui ou je connais mais enfin membre famille immédiate pour attendre mais encore pour considérer la situation avec Covid comme ça c'est pas n'importe monde qui ça attendez c'est pour ça nous là pour mener au coin en place en même temps qu'il y a une opportunité pour regarder sur Facebook et YouTube.
If it's one thing that we can say merely that we did for the general public and for viewers both regional and internationally is to bring the audio live to people and also to bring the ceremony via video too. DBS Radio, that's how we do it. We have been involved in even looking at burials and funerals for loved ones. So anyone who wishes DBS service, you can definitely request of DBS service, and we do it as perfect as you can see today. And that's what we want to do, to leave memories in the minds of many other people, because everyone has a loved one. And just imagine, you know, we were not here to bring this thing to you live, audio or video, you know, how much you would have missed. And we just want to say thank you to all the people who have already planned, because, you know, death is a must and we have to plan. And I just want to say thank you to all the persons who have been planning whenever anything happens of that nature, that they can use the services of DBS Radio. We are there to really serve you and serve you in a capacity where you will be satisfied. And I'm sure people who are viewing this here this afternoon are very much satisfied and maybe elated to note that DBS Radio can reach out in such a beautiful manner.
Oui, il y a vraiment mucho importance radio puis ça en fait en situation ça là oui nous en tant que moderniser nous ni internet avec un peu de monde qui a opportunité pour regarder par sur médias sociaux Facebook et YouTube mais même des temps nous peut aussi considérer qui il y a des gens qui ont besoin de temps avec qui pas une opportunité pour ouais comme ça nous radio DBS nous importance là ça pour mener ces deux aspects ça là pour ça ouais et aussi pour ça temps que ça c'est un plaisir pour nous ça faire ça mais en parlant de ça nous les encore informer qui nous pas que ça mais une nouvelle après-midi à 15 minutes après il y en a qu'on la coutume et ça c'est à cause de l'événement qui nous qui amène au coin en place après-midi comme ça nouvelle là pas que en place après-midi même on espère que nous que ça mène nouvelle là à 6h Australia quand même.
And the DBS radio, as we were talking about internet and talking about modern times, in the early days, DBS was supposed to be part and parcel of the whole process of GIS. That was one of the visions of Patrick John, to have DBS both televised and audio. It never really came to fruition because Hurricane David came, and so it was not possible that we could have had this kind of thing. But now today, in the modern times, you're seeing DBS radio, it's playing its part, playing its role in ensuring that people can both listen and view via video. And that says quite a lot in terms of our present development or present status as to how we really want to serve and to really enlighten our listeners and now our viewers.
Oui, après ça, nous avons vu en société la monnaie mais ouais. Au comprendre pas seulement tant, but what can I see? Where is it? Au comprendre ça c'est opportunité encore qui nous a présenté et puis même public là nous comme dit nous content que nous ça fait ça bah ça pas déjà long encore c'est ça. Not long again.
Yes, and let's take the opportunity though to remind people on the 1st of November, the DBS Radio will be celebrating 50 years of its existence. Prior to it being an independent radio station, as you know, we call ourselves DBS. We had WIBS, which would be the Windward Island Broadcasting Corporation, Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Vincent.
So what do DBS been independent of WIBS?
So we become independent out of WIBS 50 years ago. And I remember seeing in the Chronicle, which I have documented. As we are saying this, we're saying the Kalinago chief, Obutu,
yes.
coming.
What's your Kalinago name again?
Mobli is Gasa.
No, Gasa, am I right?
Atuati. On nom qu'on oublie, non?
Parfois, tu sais, you baptisé, it's all right.
Oui, c'est pas longtemps baptisé. Il pas même ni 6 mois. Pas ni 6 mois. Ouais. So we say the Obutu, the Kalinago chief, is actually Kalinago Stanford. Greeting the family of Mr. John, deceased, and he's now making his way through the assistance of the protocol officer to view the body, give his last respects to Patrick John.
Must make mention that he is dressed in his he is one of the Ubuti this waistcoat somewhat.
Yes, yeah.
With,
and his chains.
Yes.
So he came in like the real chief of the Kalinago people,
Yes.
So it must be told.
Yes.
An event that they are not looking on and they actually listening. It must be said that he came
He
in.
He didn't come in with jacket and tie.
He came in exactly like that of
his
Obutu.
chief's waistcoat.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, with his necklace, with his beaded necklaces and all of that. Like we all know, everybody has to come in with their mask. Naturally, we must make mention of the protocols. Definitely on par.
Yes.
I hear this
and
morning.
I'm seeing that the protocol officer is speaking to the family and maybe just telling them maybe to have the last view if they wish to, because they're about to close the casket.
So
because at 12 o'clock they would have to.
Like that could be the situation here.
And
because we're noticing that her son, that is
Nairi,
is assisting her. Just make sure she's properly seated on her wheelchair and possibly being wheeled again to the casket. And it seems that's what's happening.
Yes.
Okay, so just a few more minutes. And by few, I mean less than 5 minutes to go. So they'll have the final opportunity to say bye-bye, Grandpa, bye-bye, Daddy, bye-bye, Hosey. That's the situation here today.
Yes, and that's what actually is going to happen. And you can see the son is now rolling his mom on the wheelchair to have the last viewing of her husband, the late Patrick Roland John, first Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and along with her daughter
Aisha.
and
Dr. Aisha.
You
notice Aisha looks a lot like the granddaughter
Yes.
of that is treasure.
Yes. And
final duties,
And
final
then-
goodbyes.
See, the protocol officers are actually speaking to
Her son, well, his sons.
his sons.
Sons.
Rennick-
There's a
Rennick-
strong gene, if you notice, because
yes, they all look like
again,
Patrick, man.
and there is always one that looks like the other. If you
Yes.
notice, Nairi looks like the first one of the elder sons.
Yes.
Yes.
So now we have just seen Rennick, the first son,
Mm-hmm.
is actually looking on. And then you're seeing the first son of his first wife, Junior. That means he'll be Roland Patrick John Jr.
Oh, so he's a junior.
Yes, Junior, looking on. And his sister, Patricia Hefile is not here. Hefile is in St. Croix. Just looked on, and she has taken a seat, come back and taken a seat. Now we have Paula John. And you
Treasure
have
John.
Treasure John, Naomi
John. Yeah.
Well, just Treasure and Paula for the protocol, you know. And they're all preparing to just take the seats. Those have already seen their father. And you have Naomi, and a very close friend of Patrick. I remember as a young girl, in the Labor Youth Organization. She must have been so close with Patrick that she must have been at home with Patrick. And so she's now, they're now making their way to visit the body of Patrick. You're now seeing Paula is now taking a seat, and they're just preparing to close the
Ouais, comme nous
caskets
dit, enfin, nous avons une situation aussi, dernièrement, pour dernière fois, on s'est dit que ma famille, Patrick John, qui a dit d'aider, puis son collègue, qui a téwé, il pas qu'il y a encore une opportunité, depuis il fait mes casquettes là, je dirais, c'est ça, c'est tout, c'est pas qu'il ouvert encore. Comme ça, ces familles a donné dernière opportunité pour garder, pour voir, peut-être pour changer notre portrait en mémoire, dernière fois qu'il y a eu, je dirais, avant qu'il y a fait mes casquettes là.
Again, to the ambience, like yesterday, it's very beautiful. Again, the persons who have done the decor of in here is again for us very, very, very good. So we've just seen the sign for the closing of the casket. And we see Mr. Coppell of Linus is now preparing this along with another helper.
We must talk about him because he takes his job so seriously,
yeah.
professionally even.
Yes.
And it's amazing to see how much care that you
As a matter of
can
fact,
give
they're trying to make him
to
very
a lifeless
comfortable.
body. Yes.
They're trying to make this lifeless body very comfortable. You can see
There's still care
it's still
in being dead.
Yeah, yes.
That's what it is. That's what they're
Place his
showing.
head a little higher.
Yes.
And they're placing the pillow better his hands.
I'm
Just
telling you,
doing
it's
the last
amazing to
preparation.
see.
Yes.
It's not just about closing a
It's
casket.
not just closing
and
a
telling
casket.
bye-bye.
Yes. Yeah.
Doesn't showing, even if now, before they do all that everything is in place.
Yeah.
And you would expect that for a man, such as Patrick John. But we must again talk about the ambience here. I'm telling you, the lighting. If you notice, we are standing
Soft
on
lighting.
marble floors, so we
Yes.
must make mention of the marble floors.
Yes.
The
chandelier,
chandeliers
oh my
and the
God,
light
yeah.
that reflects on the marble
Yes.
floor is beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. So again, quite nicely and slowly and gracefully.
The grace in this place is
Yes,
so much.
yes. And they're
And
making
now
it.
they're preparing as we go on.
Yes.
2,
Three.
3,
Quite slowly, must say.
4, 5,
You are counting.
6,
Okay.
7,
Okay.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 seconds.
Well, you were going a little slower, so I'll say like 26 seconds.
Yeah.
And 26.
Yes.
Well, no, more, because you're going slower.
Yes.
So maybe about
30
30 seconds.
seconds, yes, to-
30 seconds
yes,
to
to
close,
close the
casket.
casket.
So it wasn't a roof thing.
Yes, it was just come close.
Yes.
Took about 30 seconds.
Check your time. Hey, this is a
Yes.
man that needs to be respected today,
Yes.
this final time.
And you can see the
Yes.
flag of the Commonwealth of Dominica is still onto the coffin,
At half.
onto the casket.
At half.
At half,
Yes.
you know. And now you are seeing the police officer is making way so that they can take the casket away.
And cover it in full.
Cover it in full.
As well, with the flag of the Commonwealth
of
of
Dominica.
Dominica.
And you know, this is for me as historical that we can sit in here, standing here today, and to bring life to the many listeners of DBS Radio, the final goodbyes of Patrick John. So we're saying,
I believe, if you allow me, it was my first year at DBS, if I'm not mistaken, that Mr. Liverpool died, and I, for some reason, I had to be on the broadcast. I was like, oh my God, I'm just a freshman basically, and I had to be on the broadcast for the burial of Mr. Liverpool. He was buried in Grand Bay, and I remember that very well. Mrs. Brown said, you have to try something. So let's see. I remember
now
that.
we've seen the police officers taken the flag, which was at half, in full, to cover the entire casket. And they're preparing in a while just to ensure that it is done properly. The flag is stuck onto the casket, so that they could prepare themselves
To hoist it.
hoist the coffin.
We must make mention
Or
there
the
how many
casket.
of them.
Six of them.
6 on 3 on each side.
Yeah. And I can imagine. I'm just looking at the facial expression of the.
So
of the,
are you going to count? 1, 2, 3, 4. Up we go. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they are taking it away.
Yes.
So goodbye from here.
almost like in slow march.
In sync as well.
Yes.
So it's goodbye, PJ, from here.
Yes. Goodbye, Patrick.
Yes.
John from here, the first Prime Minister. Later on, we will see the final goodbye. I think they're preparing him now to bring him to the Catholic Cathedral.
St. Gerald's Chapel?
St. George's Chapel.
Chapel, yes.
Yes.
But we must make mention, Cecil, even while they are taking the casket away, the manner in which they're holding it, it seems heavy.
Yes, the casket is heavy.
It
Maybe
seems
not
heavy.
Patrick.
No, I think it's the
casket.
So it's beautiful to see though that he's been taken away, where he was lying in state.
And
So we are just making our way as well to the outside, just to give you a final idea as to what's basically happening. So he's going to be taken to the hearse, I believe. And
yes.
there will be no further refrigeration for him,
Yes,
because
yes,
from
so
there,
to the
I believe
church.
it's going to the church. He might stay in the hearse for
Yes,
a bit,
yeah.
but from there it will be to the church. And
So White Hearse.
White Hearse, yes, White Hearse. So again, beautiful, but it's a beautiful sight. It's not something you get to see every day. You don't really get
State funeral.
state
I mean,
funerals.
you see funerals every day.
Yes, yes.
But
Not
that
the
type,
state, not the state.
that type
Not the
of procedures in which you have seen today, you don't get this every day, And so you have the hearse. Now the casket is now placed in the hearse, and the police officers are just making the exits, doing their drills to ensure that they show the last respects from the State House to the church.
Which we will, of course, bring to you in just a short while. This is why I think Sasha will have to take this opportunity.
And then you have the motorbike riders of the
well,
police.
I think he's going to be escorted by the
yes.
police, and that in itself is something that is expected.
Yes.
Not and in situation like that. I mean, it's a state funeral, so you'd expect the body to be escorted by the police, and this is what we are seeing here. Again, I would like to think, though, Cecil, if it had not been for COVID-19, there would be much of a fanfare.
A bigger fanfare.
A bigger farewell,
Yes,
if I could say.
That's better to say.
Yes, bigger farewell,
Yes.
where, probably would have been, thing in the streets of maybe the city for the final time in the hearse, escorted by the police and all of that. Probably something that we would have seen. But because, again, the public cannot gather, that is something that would have had to be omitted in this situation here today.
But knowing the whole issue of COVID, this for me was a beautiful send off
too. Yes.
To him. I mean, it's not an easy one, I think, for the necessary authority to have maybe organized such a beautiful send off for Patrick, because you'll have to take so many things into consideration, and the number of persons at the service,
yes.
invited persons, how much persons that you'd like to invite. It would have been so difficult, and the organizers must be complimented.
Yes, well managed
for the way that they were able to manage and to get this done. Now we're seeing the family of Mr. John leaving the president's residence as they make themselves ready to have the final preparation of the goodbyes for Mr. John. We now seeing that the hearse is now preparing to leave
the compound of the State House,
of the President's yard, and they're on the way now. And I'm sure that the many listeners and today will be waiting for the eulogy of Patrick John, and I'm sure
quite a long one it would be.
It's going to be. I suspect it's going to be about 40 minutes.
Yes, it's going to be a long one.
It's going to be a long one, because I suspect they would want to put everything that Patrick John himself did while he was Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and more. Also footballer and all the things that he has been able to do. And maybe some of the things that we did not even say that he did. But
and we could not have said all that.
And we could have said, So, as we say our final goodbye until we go to the church at 2 o'clock.
Yes.
We just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Cecil, and thank you, our technicians on duty, Mr. Baptist and Dean Thomas. But it's only bye for now. We'll see you again in just about an hour.
And as we said, there is no 14-15 total news.
There's no news this afternoon, so we'll be sure to lock in again at Tuesday, of course, to DBS Radio at about 1:30 thereabout. Bye bye now.
Back to Studio 1.